Thank you, Mohammed, for letting me know that I didn't have any audio. Embarrassing. Hey, Greg. Hey, Iori. Can you guys hear me okay now? Hold on. Hey, Linda. How is everybody? In the comments, put where you guys are writing from, where you guys are joining me from. Hey, Mustafa. Hello, everyone. Happy election day, question mark? Okay, good. I'm glad you guys can hear me. Canada, nice. Scotland, awesome. Louisiana, did you vote AC 611? From Sweden, from Bashar. London, hello, London. Maryland. Zaza, West Mass, like West Massachusetts? From Germany, Osaka, Japan. Oh, awesome. Voted for Cornell West. Good for you. Good for you for voting. A fan from Tunisia, North Africa, and I love your takes. Thank you, Jam. Jam. New Jersey, so thankful for your YouTube page. I love how much you take care about the Palestinians in your style. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. All right, so everybody who is writing that you are from the United States, tell me if you're comfortable sharing, of course. If you're not, that's cool. Whether or not you voted and who you voted for. And if you're wondering, by the way, why I'm in the kitchen, it's because I am prepping. I have to prep some food. So I figured I would do it with you guys. And for pro-Palestinian congressional candidate Devin Davis. Oh, nice. I voted early, first time as I got my citizenship last year. Oh, that's so cool. Congratulations. France, from France. Awesome. For Trump. Hopefully you're not in a swing state, Grimy. Nevada, I'm planning to vote today, but I'm having a crisis of conscience on how I should vote. I don't want to vote for Kamala, but I also don't want to vote for Trump. And since I'm in a swing state, it's weighing on me. I'm not sure what to do. Man, I really hear that. I really do. Because I feel like, I struggled a lot with it. I had like a crisis of conscience and I struggled a lot, and I'm not even in a swing state. I'm in a blue state. Yeah, I don't envy your position. I really don't, because I feel like yeah, I feel like I would struggle even more than I already did, especially if I were in a swing state. I definitely don't I don't envy you. You have to do what's in your heart, honestly. You have to do what except for you, Grimy Pixels, you're in a swing state and you voted for Trump. Nice. Grimy Pixel says, get ready for a landslide because it's coming. It's really not, Grimy. I hate to tell you this. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but you've been lied to. Like, this is just, I'm surprised, Grimy, I'm surprised you didn't learn your lesson from 2022 when all the Republicans lied and tried to like juice their voters by being like, it's a red wave, man. It's a red wave. It's coming. The red wave, man. And then there was no red wave because they were just lying. They were just trying to like fake people out, like amp people up and get people excited to like make them want to vote more. But it was a lie. And then a lot of conservatives were shocked that they didn't win. That's what's likely to happen tonight. That there is no like, I'll put it this way for Grimy. If Trump were to win, it would be by the slimmest of margins, just like 2016. It would be by a very slim margin. There is no landslide to be had. Trump is actually fairly unpopular in the country. It would be really, really slim. But on the other hand, Grimy, I understand why you believe that, because you're writing to me from X. And if you're on X, it's not a shock that you would think that Donald Trump was doing better than he is, because X is just propaganda for Trump. With Zaza wrote, as a Black person, I usually vote for the person least likely to try to kill me. Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, I think that if anybody is on Twitter, it is likely, what's the word I was going to say? What was I going to say? I feel like it's likely, if you're on Twitter, to actually believe that Trump is doing better than he is, because all Twitter is propaganda for Trump. All the ads are for Trump. Elon Musk is goosing the algorithm for Trump. So, yeah. Yeah, it is a red flag. But what I'm saying is, I think that some people have this, some Trump supporters have this thought where like they think that Trump is doing better than he is because of Twitter and because of what Republicans say. Hey, Rabal. These are the worst choices that we've ever had in the country. Yeah, and it'll probably continue to be that way. Or looking for credible sources. Yeah, but Marcella, Trump supporters don't like look for sources outside of like what they're being told. What are the first results? And I have no idea how you guys do it in the US. So they'll start trickling in once the polls close. Honestly, I fear, what I'm dreading is that we're not going to know tonight. I wish that we would just know tonight, but we're probably not. We have really stupid, basically, let me explain it really quick this way. The way it works here is that we don't have national elections, like with the popular vote for president. We do for senators and Congress, for the House of Representatives. But yeah, Grimy, sorry to interrupt. I gotta mention Grimy's comment. He wrote, it's not propaganda. I have eyes, the assassination attempts. Yeah, but the thing that you're really missing, Grimy, is that a lot of people don't like him, and a lot of people easily forgot about the assassination attempt and moved on. You're also not considering how many women can't stand him. You're not considering abortion and what a big deal that is to people. And you're not considering the fact that like a lot of like RFK Tulsi, yeah, they're also not gonna do anything. This is what I mean, Grimy, you're in a bubble. You think that people like RFK and Tulsi. Most people don't. They don't. I'm not saying it's impossible for Trump to win, but if he does, it's going to be by the slightest of margins. Anyway, the way that our elections work is that we do it by 50 states, and each state awards a certain amount of electors to whoever wins that particular state. And each state has a certain amount of electors in the Electoral College, which then, once the Electoral College votes are added up, that's who becomes president. It is the reason why it's such a scam. Like, it's a joke. Like, if we really lived in a democracy, we should have popular vote presidential elections just like we do with Senate and with the House. But we don't. And the reason why we don't is because Republicans know that they cannot win an election without that advantage. They need those training wheels. Because if you're not in the US, you might not know that a Republican has only won the popular vote once in the last, like, what was it? 40 years? 35 years? Like, at least let's start from 2000. At least since 2000, they won one popular vote. Every other time the Democrat wins the popular vote. And so that's why the Republicans want to keep the Electoral College. Because I promise you, let's just say it would never happen because Trump is not really as popular as people think. He's actually fairly unpopular. It's about 40% of the country that really likes him. So 60 don't. But let's just say, for argument's sake, okay, that Trump won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote. I'm sorry, that is what happened in 2016. I meant to say the other way around. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Trump won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College. I promise you, the Electoral College will be gone. Republicans would get rid of it immediately. Immediately. They'd be like, screw the Electoral College. It's undemocratic. It's antiquated. It's a vestige of slavery. And they'd get rid of it. But the reason why they like it and they like having it around is because it's the only way that they can win a popular vote election, or it's the only way they can win a national election at the presidential level. I'll check in with you tomorrow. All right, Grimy. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be similar to 2016. Trump wins the Electoral College. Somebody said, I'm only rooting to support. This is going way too fast. Do you need a PhD to understand the voting system in the U.S.? I know they make it complicated on purpose. Like, it's actually a scam. Like, it's actually a scam. It's going very fast. The chat. Who is battling me with emojis? Lol. I think that it's going to be similar to 2016. Trump wins Electoral College, then 50%. Harris wins the popular vote. I don't know. Kerry nearly did in 2004, slightly more votes in Ohio. Yeah, he like barely lost. I just came here because I want to know who you are voting for, Ryan. Oh, I already voted. I voted early, like a few days ago. I voted for Claudia de la Cruz. One day everyone will realize it's all a lie. Yeah, but that'll probably happen once the country's already collapsed, you know? Now, I want to play some of this live election coverage so we can react to it together, but I'm wondering like how people on YouTube do so without like YouTube message or like giving them a copyright. I don't know. It's weird. I know it's possible because I see channels doing it all the time. I see channels doing it all the time. Well, the polls are saying that it's 50-50 right now, but again, we don't have a popular election in this country the way that we elect president. We do it through the Electoral College. So the president can win millions and millions of more votes and still lose, which is what happened in 2016 because of the Electoral College. But as of right now, the polls say that it's 50-50. I did fix my nails, thank you, which is why I'm wearing gloves. I'm trying to preserve them. It was 78 degrees here today in New York, which is insane. I see people saying landslide either way, but I don't think either way. I honestly can't. I will be surprised if it were a landslide in either direction. I think it's going to be a close election, regardless of who wins. Like, if Trump wins, I think it's going to be by like the slimmest margin. But if Kamala wins, I think that she'll win by more than Trump would win by, but I still think it would be a small margin. No, thanks. I don't think we will have the result tonight, unless the only way that we would have the result tonight is if it were actually a landslide. Like if it were a landslide election in either direction, then we would know tonight. But we probably won't know tonight because we don't really have landslide elections in this country anymore. Because again, we elect our presidents through the Electoral College, not through the popular vote. So it's unlikely that we'll know. And some of our states have really stupid rules, like you can't start counting mail-in ballots until the day of the election, even though they've been there for a week, which is really dumb. As a Christian, I feel like you can't support either party. Yeah, I feel that, Terrell. I really do. Because honestly, as a Christian, which I am, I did not feel like I would obviously never support Trump. The idea of like calling yourself a Christian and then supporting Trump, lamau. But like even as a Christian, like I couldn't support the Democrats this time because of what they've done in Gaza. It'd be funny if Trump did lose by a landslide. That would be funny. But unfortunately, I just think that the way our polarization is in the United States, I don't think he will. I think it'll be like somewhat of a, like if she wins, it'll be by more than he would win by. Like I still think she would win by more than he would, but I don't think it's going to be a landslide either direction. I also think that the Democrats might lose the Senate. Well, yeah, not my. Sending love to all Americans from your neighbor up top. I wouldn't vote. Thank you. No thanks. The PLFP in Palestine says not to vote for either. Yeah, I saw that, Shy Son. I kind of wish that they would have come out earlier, honestly. Like, I feel like a lot of people who really care about what's happening in Gaza would have loved to have heard from the PFLP and from like Bison and all them a little bit earlier than they did. Because a lot of Americans, by the time they saw those endorsements or, videos from Bison or anything like that, they had already voted. Like, by the time I saw them, I had already voted. I need to see him lose to a black woman. He hates us. Yeah, that would be fun. I'm not going to lie and say that wouldn't be fun. That would be very fun. I want to see all of them lose, not just him. I want to see them be rebuked. I want to see Elon Musk cry. Like, I think, yes, I would definitely enjoy that for sure. Especially since we know that he's going to lie and say that he won no matter what. Like, he is not going to come out, and even if he loses by a decent margin, he is not going to come out and say, I concede, congratulations to Kamala Harris. Like, that's not going to happen. He will say he won anyway, just like he did last time. I don't know if you guys saw, but I did a video last night that I posted about the Red Mirage and how they used the Red Mirage, knowing it was coming, to try to steal the last election. Thanks, Brian. Did Bison actually endorse anyone? Yeah, she endorsed Jill Stein, but I'd already voted by the time she came out and said that. I predict Trump will leave the country. Yeah, right. Are you kidding me? We're not that lucky. We're not that lucky. Guys, it's going to be a long night because I'm going to do this stream with you guys. And then afterwards, which I hope that you guys are already following me on Twitter. If you're not, I'm going to be live reacting to any results that come in after we do the live stream. Unfortunately, SZA, I don't think that he would go to jail. I mean, you said earlier that you were a Black woman. Like, you know better than I do, than anybody else as a Black person living in America, that rich, white, powerful men do not go to jail. Trump needs to live in the Epstein cell. Yeah, isn't it amazing how this is why I can't take Republicans seriously, and why I don't even like to argue with them, because they're such hacks and they're such like unprincipled people that you can't even really argue with them or call them out for hypocrisy because they don't care. Like, I want you guys to imagine how Republicans would be losing their minds if that story had just come out about a Democrat. The story that just came out about Epstein's long ties with Trump, his close friendship with Trump, the tapes that came out. Like, if that had been a Democrat, it would have been a bombshell. The Republicans wouldn't be shutting up about it. But then suddenly it's about Trump and Republicans haven't talked about it at all. What happened? What happened to the Epstein files? Okay. Hey, our burrow snake. Hey, Blakely. Oh, I forgot. I always try to put the member comments up. Hey, Blakely. Glad you hosted this space. Thank you. It's going to be a crazy day. I know. That's why I think that we should be doing it together. You know what I'm saying? And then after this, which I said earlier, and I'll repeat a few times through the stream, afterwards, I'm going to be live tweeting the rest of it on Twitter. So if you don't already follow me on Twitter, do. In fact, I always say people should follow me on Twitter anyway, because it's where I get to be my most obnoxious self. I don't have to censor myself really on Twitter the way that I have to censor myself on the other platforms. A global poll, Arab support Kamala Harris by 44% compared to 38% for Trump. Honestly, I'm surprised any Arab or Muslim supports Kamala Harris. Like, I'm surprised she has any support. Thank you for being on the right side. I have a feeling Trump will win. It's possible. Of course, I follow you there. Oh, okay, good. But yeah, I will be live tweeting it. But if you guys, I know Twitter is it's run by like right-wing Elon Musk, who basically uses it as a propaganda arm for Trump and Republicans. However, it's not as censorious as the other apps. So that's the upside. I voted third party for 3 elections in a row. Yeah, and you know what? What was I just gonna say? I lost my train of thought. I think that, yeah, so we're gonna do the stream tonight, and then I'm gonna live tweet the remaining results of tonight. But I think if you guys want my prediction, which I kind of didn't want to do a prediction because I really don't know. Like, I don't actually know. Like, the polls are really, really close. But if I had to predict, I predict 2 things. One, we're not going to know the winner tonight because apparently, you know, that's how it be now. We drag elections out for days so the Republicans have time to lie, so that they have time to do their Stop the Steal nonsense part 2, so that they have, you know, time to do whatever it is, you know, that they want to lie about. And then, so we probably won't know tonight. And like I said earlier, a lot of states don't even allow their votes to be counted until election day. Like, they have those dumb laws in place. And then if I had to, true, Israel, I mean, that is true, no matter what happens. AC 611 COVID was part of it, but part of it was because there's a bunch of states that have laws that you can't even start counting your mail-in ballots till day of. Mady and Hyder, the answer to both questions is no. No, I haven't seen the movie, and no, I can't think of a movie that symbolizes the election. Yeah, not my real name. I agree. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can switch this. All right, so I don't know about you guys, but whenever I do have, if there's an election night at any point, I always make tacos for me and my husband. Like, we always have tacos. It's just our thing whenever there's elections. It doesn't matter if it's a presidential election. I do it during the midterms. I do it in local elections. I do it in Senate races, House races, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to start prepping my tacos for later tonight so you guys can keep me company while I do that. And then... So let's just see what they're saying. Let's see what the haps is. Wait, is anybody live? Else live? Okay, but how do you reset this? Morning, Joe, lol.
On volunteer shifts or treated this like a full-time job of knocking on doors. So many heroic Americans. The question before about who should be heralded in this election, should Kamala Harris win? It's actually not her. It's the American people who are doing so much to not have us go back to the darkness, to the divisiveness, to the us versus them, who are really choosing what democracy is about. It's about compromise. It's about coming together. It's about it being just us, one country, one nation, one people.
That brings me back, Senator, to the question that so many people have is they don't understand how this race is tied. And
really treated this like a full-time job.
Bro, I said live.
Oh, sure. And a commitment.
What? No. Bro.
That is, but just in conversations and reporting that I've been doing here in Milwaukee, you know, they are very careful about the entire process. And what they do at the beginning of the day, they make sure that they essentially run the ticket from those tabulators to make sure that there are no ballots in the tabulators. And what they're doing now, according to these notes, is they're starting that process over for at least one of the tabulators. So this is not a double count. This is not anything nefarious. They're saying that they want to make sure that they get the count right and get it right before they start reporting it to the public. So they're going to, at least for one of these tabulators, essentially empty it out and restart the process of submitting those ballots into that tabulator to make sure that the numbers that they have match what they need to be, Nicole.
I smell caffeine in your future. Shaq Brewster, thank you very much for your reporting. Joining us now from Howard University, where Vice President Kamala Harris will be holding her watch party tonight. The president of the National Action Network, the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, the Rev.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible.
Rev, just take me through what you're watching for as data starts to come in and we hear all these glorious stories of voters willing to wait 2, 3, 4 hours to have their voice heard today on election
Why
day.
are you glad? Like, why are you saying it like it's a good
well,
thing?
I think it is very invigorating, and to me, something celebratory to see so many people vote. We'll see what the results are. I also think the fact that people are waiting in line shows that people have taken this very seriously, Nicole, because you have probably not seen such contrasting candidates in our lifetimes. Probably not since the Civil War.
You guys said that about Biden.
Hold on everything from women's rights to voting rights to civil rights going forward. And standing here in Howard University, I think that it really speaks to the history of this moment, because this is the first time that you've had a historic Black college host a presidential election night watch party. You've never had this in history. So, you know, we'll see if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes the first woman and first woman of color to be vice president. But she's already made history by bringing the world to a HBCU to see who will become the next president of the United States.
Rev, you are the first person that so many people call in a moment of political crisis. You're also a person that so many of us call when we want to find out what's happening on the ground. And so in that second hat that you wear for all of us, what are you hearing anecdotally on the ground about turnout?
I'm hearing on the ground that a lot of people warmed up late. National Action Network had a Get Out the Vote tour, not telling people who to vote for. I went to about 10 cities, ending in Winston-Salem yesterday, and there was a growing sense of urgency. A lot of it provoked by the ugliness of the campaign. When you've got people being called garbage and people being, in many ways, disrespectful. Yesterday, somebody said to me, Reverend Al, did you hear when I just got back to New York, did you hear he almost called her the B word? I think that in many ways, where people seemed indifferent as late as 2 or 3 weeks ago, people are starting to say, wait a minute, there's a certain level and a certain character that I want with the White House or whoever's the occupant of the White House. And then you have those that have real concerns. Women's right to choose is more than just abortion. It's health. It's preserving people's lives. Then the right to vote. Then you deal with the question of affirmative action. How do we ever equalize society? So I've heard people that have been substantive, and I've heard people that have been triggered by the last couple of days of ugliness, saying, no, I might agree on some things, but I don't think we can afford to be this nasty and ugly.
This person is just one of the 80% of Republican hires.
I mean, Alicia, it raises a great question, no matter how this turns out and how Trump closed. I mean, in 16, he closed with, I mean, Trump's best days as a candidate were between the
about 30,000 absentee ballots through tabulating machines for an abundance of caution, because what they learned is that the doors of one of its tabulating machines were open. It hadn't been closed properly, and they want to make absolutely sure that the machine counted everything properly. So they are rerunning 30,000 ballots. Why that is important is it will mean that there will take a longer time to count those absentee ballots. And if you will remember back in 2020, it was the absentee ballots and waiting for those to be counted, which we heard Donald Trump and the Republicans jump on, saying there's some sort of...
They're going to do it anyway, you guys. They're going to do it anyway. They are going to pretend that ballots were fraudulent. Of course they will. They started filing like BS lawsuits like 2 months ago. Yeah, I noticed that like a lot of conservatives and Republicans, because they are in their own bubble, they don't realize how much people don't like Trump, because everyone they know likes Trump. So they think, oh, everybody loves Trump. He's going to win. It's going to be based. Like, it's going to be a landslide. But like, they don't realize that most people don't like him. Like a majority of people don't like him. We in Palestine love you and thank you for your support. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. How are you guys in Palestine feeling about our election here? I mean, I know that they're both simps of the Israeli regime, but what time is it there? In Palestine or in New York? Yeah, conservatives are allowed on social media, so they think that they have more support than they actually do. We don't care. Both are the same. True. Yeah, figure drawing. Yes, this is absolutely true. And I have said it before, and I will say it again. And I'm not just talking about president here, like whatever. I'm talking about Democrats in general, Republicans in general. Democrats will lie, and they'll be like, we're going to do health care. We're going to take on corporate greed. You know, all these promises that they're not going to keep. Republicans won't even promise anything good. Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, just yesterday or the day before was like, yeah, we're gonna end Obamacare again. Bro, literally no one wants that. No one wants that. They tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act like 500 times, and it failed every time because literally no one wanted it. They're like, we're going to give tax cuts to the rich. No one wants what they're selling. Like, that's why, which I always say, they have to focus so much on culture war issues. They've got to like spend so much time like demonizing trans people because no one actually likes their policies. Literally no one. Not even conservative and Republican voters like their policies. Think about it. Think about it. How many Republicans or conservatives do you actually hear be like, I can't wait? Voters, not, you know, the oligarchs and stuff in the media. But I'm talking about rank and file Republican voters. How many of them do you actually see be like, I can't wait for the Republicans to get the fiscal conservative agenda out, for them to abolish the Department of Education, for them to give more taxes to the rich and gut more regulations on the EPA so that they can poison your water more? And I just can't wait. You know, Elon Musk said the other day, oh, we're going to have to cut a lot of spending and there'll be some pain, but it'll be worth it in the long run. And when he says cut spending, of course, he doesn't mean for you. I mean, for himself, he means for you. He means for regular people. He means for regular people, cutting social programs, cutting Medicaid, cutting Medicare. That's what he means. He doesn't mean obviously for him, except for cutting his taxes, but he wants to tell you, oh, there'll be some pain for you in the interim. No, literally no one wants their policies. That's why they have to focus on culture war issues. Yeah, concepts of a plan on healthcare. That was actually hilarious. That was actually hilarious. Like, bro, you've been running for president for 10 years. You still haven't come up with a healthcare plan. And again, you guys, the reason why they haven't come up with a plan yet on healthcare is because they don't believe Americans should have it. That's why. They don't think Americans should have healthcare at all. At all. That's why they don't have a plan. But they, again, it's always never coming out and saying what they actually want to do because their policies are so unpopular. So of course the Republicans are not going to come out and just say, yeah, we don't believe Americans should have health care. No, they're not going to say that. They're going to go, oh, we're going to come up with our own plan. And how many of you guys can guess the phrases that they'll use? Because they always use the same phrases. They always use the same like lines, like marketing propaganda lines. I want to see if any of you guys get it. Tacos in Nova Scotia. Interesting. But they believe Israel should get free healthcare. True. I want to see you guys guess. So when Republicans, like, to restate the question, because I want you guys to guess, when Republicans say, oh, we're going to come up with our own healthcare plan, because they can't actually just come out and say, we don't believe people should have healthcare. What are the phrases or the sound bites or the propaganda that they use to try to skirt around it? I saw your video on the latest AJ Plus episode. Huh? I was on AJ Plus? Based. No, okay. I'll just tell you. Hey, theater. I'll just tell you. What they say is the same thing they always say, okay? They always go, oh, we're going to unleash the free market. We're going to deregulate. We're going to deregulate and roll back all those cumbersome, regulations and bureaucracy so that there's more freedom and choice in the free marketplace, which is just all a lie. Like, it's just marketing. It's just PR. It's just propaganda. It's zombie Reagan talking points, actually. It's amazing to me that zombie Reagan talking points are still being used in the year of our Lord, 2024, on Al Gore's internet and TV. But, like, it's incredible. Because what they mean when they say deregulation is deregulate for the profiteers. For the profiteers. And when they say end the bureaucracy, that usually means gutting institutions that are public on behalf of privatizing them. Because why don't they want to get rid of health insurance then? Because health insurance is nothing but bureaucracy, but they don't want to get rid of that. When they say the marketplace, the free market, they mean privatize it so that you get charged more. Okay? That's what that means. No, the rhetoric has not changed since the Reagan administration. Yeah, and then they say we don't have enough money for universal health care, which, yes, is an absolute lie. It's like a joke of a lie. All the deregulation has continued. Wait, I'm trying to think. Okay. Maybe I can move this. I guess I'll play a little bit of this. No, you're right. It would save money. I'm trying to move this because I need to rinse my lettuce, you guys, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it with you guys still here. How about this? How about this? Okay. And then we'll talk while I cut it. I'm going to play this while I wash my lettuce.
Of malfeasance. Officials are saying this is not the case. There was an issue with one of the machines not being closed properly, and they want to make, out of abundance of caution, sure that each and every vote is properly counted. So we may have to wait a bit longer to find out what the tally of those absentee votes were in Milwaukee, the most populous city in Wisconsin.
All right.
Aaron?
And obviously abundance of caution is important. Those wanting the quick results, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you want, but 30,000, they're going to rerun those. Every single one of those counts when it comes to getting this final number. Let's go to Michigan, Macomb Township, right outside of Detroit. Jim Sciutto is there. And Jim, we've heard about record turnout in Michigan as well. Secretary of State talking about that. What are you seeing at the polling site where you are?
Yeah, they say they were on track for record turnout in the whole state of Michigan, and certainly where we are in Macomb Township and Macomb County, just outside of Detroit, they're seeing this. We're right in the middle of the lines here. They've been wrapping around the building here, coming down, casting their votes, and then up here they enter them into the machines. Keep in mind, this is day 10 of voting here. There were 9 days of early voting. That's new. Voted in via constitutional amendment in 2022. So this is the first presidential cycle with that early voting. And I talked to the township clerk here. She said she sees lines as long as 60, 90 minutes every one of those 9 early voting days. Maximum enthusiasm. She says voters are telling her they really want their vote to count this year. They see their vote as counting. She's seen a big number of first-time voters as well. And that is not just happening here in Macomb Township and Macomb County. It's happening across the state. Even before today, close to 3.5 million people had already voted, close to half the active registered voters in the state. And just one measure of that, it's really hot today. It's these I voted stickers, and they were part of a contest around the state. Kids in the state, high school students, adults. One of the favorites is "Ope, I voted." If you know the Midwest, a little bit of a Midwestern expression there as well. That's one sign of the enthusiasm in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, incredible enthusiasm everywhere. And then we'll see how it turns out. Let's go to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Kylie Atwood has been there. Kylie, earlier when I was speaking to you, you were showing us how it works where you are. What are you hearing now from voters? It looks a little quiet behind you. Do you think you've sort of seen it, or more people coming in here at the end?
Aaron, it has been a little bit quiet, but there's been a consistent flow of folks coming in to vote here on the western side of Michigan in Grand Rapids. We have one voter with us this evening who actually voted for Trump. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about why you cast your vote for Trump tonight?
I guess it'd have to do with I'm more of like a blue collar worker, and I knew that one of the things he said he was going to do was cut taxes for so that's how I make a lot of my money.
I can't.
So probably the main driver.
I can't.
So for you, it's really a financial decision more than anything else?
Right. Yeah.
Bro, I'm sorry, but this is just embarrassing. This is embarrassing. I voted for Trump because he says he's going to help blue collar workers. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. This is so embarrassing. His record on workers was horrible. Horrible. Just because he says shit, they're like, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Question all the time at his rallies. Well, the plurality here, 45% of Americans nationwide voting in this election say their family's financial situation is worse than 4 years ago. 30% say it's about the same. Only a quarter, 24%, say it's better than 4 years ago, Jake.
All right, David Chalian, thanks so much. And Aaron Burnett is now getting an update from the Western battlegrounds. Aaron?
All right, Jake. And, looking at these exit polls, you can make an argument either way. And in hindsight, we will look back. We will be able to parse all this together and see what it really is saying here. But let's go to some of these battlegrounds: Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia. Let's start, though, with you, Sarah Seidner, in Wisconsin, Cedarburg, outside Milwaukee. You hear all these exit polls coming in, but you're actually speaking to voters there at the polls. Does this fit with what you're seeing? And what are you seeing right now?
Look, we've been seeing a steady stream of people coming through here, and they're expecting this to be potentially one of the highest percentages of voters turnout that they have seen ever, with 95 potentially % of registered voters showing up here at this poll. But I do want to give you some new information that we have just gotten in the city of Milwaukee, which is about 20 miles from where we are. We are in the suburbs here. They are now saying, according to election officials there, that they're going to have to rerun about 30,000 absentee ballots through tabulating machines for an abundance of caution, because what they learned is that the doors of one of its tabulating machines
we already
were open.
saw
It
that.
hadn't been closed properly, and they want to make absolutely sure that the machine counted everything properly. So they are rerunning 30,000.
Some social media posts from Trump.
Bomb threats that was made against a polling location here in Gwinnett County around 12:45 today.
You're making
a Supreme Court judge has now extended voting
like,
at 2 precincts. Precinct 112 and Precinct 52. Now, they were both in the same facility. That's the Mountain Park Activity Center in Stone Mountain. It was evacuated for about an hour.
That's
So
like my
everything stopped down there for about 58 minutes. So voting will continue until 7:58 p.m. tonight. That just coming in, a ruling from a Superior Court judge here. Let me show you. This is the Grace New Hope Church. We are just before another rush here that's expected. I spoke with Margie, who's the poll manager here, and says that as we get closer to 7 p.m., this polling location will close at 7, that she's expecting another rush. This morning, she says she's never seen anything like it. People who showed up, she said women, people of color, Asian Americans as well. She said a lot of excitement.
Yeah, bro, but then you had that guy being like,
a lot of excitement from young
actually,
people.
I
We're hearing
voted
that
for
in Atlanta. Of
Trump
course, we're
because
hearing
he
that
said
out west. We
that
heard
he
from the
was
Secretary
like
of
for the
State in
blue collar
Nevada. We'll see what it
worker and
means.
stuff.
Let's go to Kate Baldwin. She's at a polling place outside Philadelphia.
This is what we're dealing
And Kate,
with
I know there
now.
was a response there as you're talking to officials to some social media posts from Trump.
Absolutely.
media
Look,
posts is not a good
disinformation,
indicator.
misinformation, it's been running rampant, and it's been something that officials in Pennsylvania have been trying to fight against ahead of Election Day, to reassure people that this election here will be safe and secure just as it was in 2020. They're now having to combat that from the very top. Donald Trump sending out about 4:30 a Truth Social post saying that he's heard a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia, saying law enforcement was on the way. We just got a statement from the Philadelphia City Commissioners, the people in charge of running the election in Philadelphia and overseeing it, saying this. Seth Bluestein saying this. There is absolutely no truth to this allegation. It is yet another example of disinformation. Voting in Philadelphia has been safe and secure. He goes on to say, we have been in regular contact with the army, have been responsive to every report of irregularities at the polls to ensure Philadelphians can vote safely and securely. Taking it a step further, my colleague Holmes Librand spoke with the Philadelphia Police Department. They also said, Aaron, they are not aware of what Donald Trump is referring to, but that is the reality in Philadelphia. But they continue the counting. They're keeping their heads down and continuing to get the work done. But they're now having to combat this on Election Day from Donald Trump.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Of
And our voting
course
desk
he
is
is. See
keeping
what I
tabs
tell
on
you.
all
Of
the
course he's gonna
presidential
lie.
battlegrounds. Anywhere that there's been a delay or someone is called for any kind of a concern on anything. We now have some new reporting out of Philadelphia. Pam Brown, you're at the voting desk where there's been some new details on what's happening there.
Yeah, that's right. I've been speaking to officials across the country, but in Pennsylvania, the crown jewel battleground Commonwealth, I
It's
should
not
say,
a
I just got off
bad
the phone with an
big
official
deal,
there
but
in
you know what always
Philadelphia,
annoys me?
and this
When
is what
people
the
get
official told me.
detailed.
Overall, they have
Detailed.
182,000 early ballots in Philly counted so far, and 75 to 100,000 of those will be released at 8:01 p.m. tonight after the polls close.
Oh,
So we should
snap.
note that overall number could rise in Philly because voters have until 8 p.m. to drop off their early ballots. Now, let's kick it over here to Arizona. Arizona, actually, I just got off from the phone with a source in Maricopa, the largest county there. That source tells me it is taking longer than expected to process those early ballots. Here's why, Aaron. This year, they have double the amount of paper, front and back. 79 measures and contests that they have to process.
The officials here in Fulton County, the polls will be open anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes past this 7 p.m. deadline when they were expected to close. Again, this is designed to give voters an opportunity to vote to make up for the period that these locations were closed today. Now, as Pam Brown was just pointing out, Georgia does have a rule that says an hour after your polls close, you need to report early absentee advanced voting. And in speaking to officials, they still believe we are going to see very timely results in Georgia, even though we have these 5 locations in Fulton County that are going to be staying open later, as well as a handful of other locations across the state. Still a lot of optimism from officials here that we are going to see some speedy results tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Republican Secretary of State there has been so confident in that. We hope that's the case. All right, Sarah Murray, thank you very much with that latest reporting from Atlanta. Let's go over to John King. I'm peeking behind you at the wall. I see Pennsylvania is up.
So as you were translating what that means, I want to try to add to that as well as we go through it. Number one, let's start out west, and I'm going to walk over this way for a minute. If this race comes down to Arizona and Nevada, which is distinctly possible given how close it was, you get the impression from what we just heard, the counts there could take a little bit longer. If it comes down 11 and 6 in terms of the electoral votes, if it comes down to out west. However, it's also quite possible when we get these, which some will be late tonight, some could be tomorrow or beyond, we'll get more. So let's wander back over here and go through what we just heard. And I'll have Pennsylvania up because you just heard from Kate Baldwin. So let's start with Kate Baldwin. She's here in Bucks County. This is one of the key caller counties right around Philadelphia. Democrats need to run it up big in Philadelphia and then do well in the suburbs around it. Bucks County, blue collar, cops, firefighters, close to Philadelphia, which is just here to the south. This has been the most competitive of the caller counties. The more affluent, more educated, Montgomery and Delaware have become overwhelmingly Democratic. Look how close Bucks County was in 2020, 52 to 47. Go back to 2016, it's even closer, 48 to 48, or 49 if you round up Secretary Clinton to 48 there. So that's a very important point when Kate is saying, you know, there could be keeping precincts open a little bit longer to deal with that. That's what happens on election night, number one. Number two, if you're still voting and you see things on social media, check with your state officials or your county officials. Be careful about what you believe on social media.
Trump promised everyone the best health care. We're going to let kids not try. No, he
the
tried the
outcome of
opposite. He tried to destroy the Affordable Care Act. Remember?
Was because he makes an important point. Both Sarah Murray,
I feel like people forget about that. Like he almost succeeded had it not been for John McCain voting against it, voting it
10%
down.
of the state population. You see how important it is to the Democratic coalition there. But then where Victor was out here in Gwinnett County. Again, as Victor noted, this was Republican territory 8, 10, 12 years ago. It is increasingly Democratic territory now. You see right there. So keeping the polling places open for a little bit longer could be incredibly important. And again, bomb threats, that's unusual. Keeping polling places open a little bit later because something happens, that's part of the process, Jake. Happens all the time, and we just need to be patient.
All right. Thanks so much. And we're getting a new read on the issues that matter to voters. David Chalian back with more exit poll information. David, how concerned are people about this issue of protecting democracy?
Are they, though?
It's the number one issue, according to the exit poll of voters across the country in this election. 35% of voters in this election, Jake, say it is the most important issue. So we went a little deeper. Is democracy in the U.S. secure or threatened? 73% of voters nationally in this election, according to these preliminary.
Yeah, you're right, Brian.
Say
He
US
did not keep any
democracy is
promises
threatened.
except for his
Only
tax cuts to the
25%
rich.
think
And
it's
Biden did
secure.
not reverse them, which he
Are
said
you
he would do
confident
if he
that
got elected,
elections
and then he
are being
didn't.
conducted fairly and accurately in the United States? Well, 2/3 of voters in this election, 68%, say they are confident. 31% of voters say they're not confident that elections are being conducted fairly and accurately today. We also
Yeah,
need to look at that
because of the right wing, because they lie.
among Harris
That's
voters
why.
in this election nationally, Drake, 88%, nearly 9 out of 10 Harris voters.
I hate when they're like, Oh, people aren't confident that the elections are being run fairly. Yeah, because Republicans are always lying about it. That's why.
Confident that elections are being conducted fairly and accurately, only 11% are not confident. As I'm sure you could imagine, after the last 4 years, Donald Trump supporters, it's a totally different story. It's a split decision. Only 47% of Trump voters in this election say they're confident that the election is conducted fairly and accurately.
That's crazy.
52%, a slim majority of Trump voters, are not confident, Jake. We also asked, are you concerned about violence as a result of the election? And overall, 71% of voters across the country, according to these early exit polls, say yes, they are concerned about violence. 27%, Jake, say no, they're not.
All right, David Chalian, thanks so much. Anderson, over to you.
Yeah, Jake, thanks very much. Just looking at the new exit polls, anything surprise you on this?
Listen, I'm actually surprised by the number of Republicans in this exit poll that actually do trust the election. It's nearly half.
Given all
they
the
trust
rhetoric
process.
from the former president.
Yeah, and as we speak, Donald Trump is espousing on his Truth Social that there's fraud in Philadelphia. It's been knocked down by local election officials, but this is
By the way,
happening
the top
in real
election
time.
official in Pennsylvania is Republican.
Is a Republican. But listen, I think it's not helpful to Donald Trump if democracy is actually as high on voters' minds. Now, people can interpret that different. I think that there are some on the right who are going to say, well, the threat to democracy is the other side. But I think by and large,
no one
that tends
thinks
to
that.
capture the voters who are concerned about January 6th, stop the steal, and efforts to overturn the election.
I think this challenging this
Whoever
assertion
wins
of
the
fraud in
presidential
Philly and some of the
election,
other things he said
we
lately is
know
one of the
that
reasons
the
why
real
people are
winner
concerned
is going to be
about
the Israeli
violence
regime.
and about what's going to happen after the election, because this has become more and more a mantra as the
I
days
watched
of,
Elon Musk, Joe Rogan's Molly
come
chip
toward
brain
the
like
election.
Play-Doh with.
Look, I think Governor Shapiro and
yeah,
the
that
team in
was
Pennsylvania done a laudable job in doing
that was
things. They're transparent.
oh my
we don't
gosh,
have
that was
butcher
bad.
paper up on
That
the
was
windows
a bad
like we
interview.
had in the last election. People are being shown things. There's like cameras there. So I am confident that this will be a fair election, a free election, and that it's going to come out, the way it's supposed to come out. People are voting
Until Trump
in
comes
record
out
numbers
and says that
I'm
it was
hopeful
stolen,
our
which he
team wins.
definitely will, and then all of his hacks and his lackeys will join him in line too. All of them, all of his hacks and lackeys, including this bold basketball-headed guy, will come out and be like, yeah, stop the steal. It's like, and they're all Zionists, by the way, okay? All of them, that entire panel, Van Jones and all them hacks. That they have bipartisan agreement on.
Well, I mean, to me, it is interesting that democracy, which should be a shared value, has now become almost a partisan issue. When you looked at concern for democracy was not very high for a party, the Republican Party, that's supposed to be the party of liberty, the party of patriotism. Something's really happened. I think the Democratic Party, has picked up the banner of a deeper kind of patriotism and a deeper kind of commitment to democracy. And I think that shows in these numbers.
It's interesting, though. The people were critical early on of Kamala Harris for running on the defense of democracy idea. It seems, certainly just from these exit polls, that it.
Yeah, I mean, look, but I don't think she ran on those alone.
early
It would
on,
have been a mistake to do so. I think the people who care deeply about that were going to be with her, and so that is in the mix. But on your point about democracy, look, Donald Trump's project has been to raise doubts about all institutions.
Our
and,
coverage
that's
continues
dangerous.
right now.
Oh, I'm like, why did he cut him off? Because it went into 6 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York. It went into 6, so they're like resetting it. I see now.
It is election night in America. These are live pictures.
Which, by the way, because of the fact that we're doing live election coverage and like YouTube gets weird, like a whatever, like all of them do, the streaming services about why am I losing my train of thought? They all get weird about like covering like mainstream media or anything like that. So just want to encourage everybody. We've been on the stream for about an hour to subscribe. If you haven't, that does not cost you anything, just to subscribe to my YouTube. And if you are able, join either my Patreon, my Ko-Fi, or you can donate super chats during this stream. It definitely helps out the channel. So thank you, everyone. And all the links are in my YouTube. All right, let's keep going.
A polling place near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. on our radar this evening. The state was pivotal in the Democrats' 2020 presidential victory, and Georgia's 16 electoral votes could be decisive in this election as well. Our correspondents are tracking Election Day voting in all the top swing states and will be on the scene as the first vote counts are reported. Our correspondents are working their sources inside the Harris and Trump campaigns. Let's check in with Abby Phillip, who is at
This
Harris
guy's like,
headquarters at
it's
Howard
easier to
University
just call everyone
here
you
in
don't like a
Washington,
Zionist.
D.C.
No,
And Abby, what are you
literally,
hearing
all
from
the people on
campaign
CNN
themselves?
are Zionists. Like, I'm not just saying that. They
Well, Jacob,
literally
these are the
are.
critical turnout hours for the Harris campaign. And I'm here with my colleague, Jeff Zelody. He's got some new reporting about how the Harris campaign, Jeff, is trying to, in these final moments, reach the people that they need to reach who maybe haven't voted yet.
It's so extraordinary, Abby. Even as the vice president is at the Naval Observatory here, about 100 miles away in the campaign's war room in Wilmington, they are checking these turnout numbers and literally going door by door. A senior advisor told me just a short time ago, if you have not voted yet, you will get a knock on your door, or someone will give you a phone call. Just a few moments ago, the campaign sent out a blast release saying, trying to get volunteers to call people who have not voted. So that is how micro this is. But on a broader sense, the Harris campaign, as you've been reporting earlier, she is feeling
Brian
optimistic.
said,
we're
I
told,
think
but
we need to have an
cautious.
IQ
And
test.
one
for 14
question
years
is, yes, they do
old
believe
before you
turnout
can
is high in
vote.
cities like Madison
No.
and Milwaukee and Detroit, but the high turnout can obviously.
No, I don't think so, Brian. And the reason for that is because historically, those kinds of things were used to discriminate against people. Like they used to, during the Jim Crow era, they would have all kinds of ridiculous tests that they would make Black people take in order to be able to vote. Like voting is a right. It's a right. You shouldn't have to do anything to be able to vote. That's not the problem. The problem is we allow so much propaganda through our media. We allow so many lies to go unchallenged. We don't educate people in civics properly. I love you, Blakely. I subscribed as soon as I saw you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for hosting this. Great to be a part of the community. Thank you.
Go both ways. So the question of the gender gap is front and center here. For Howard University, obviously, and her supporters will be coming in here shortly. And I'm told that she has also been working on a speech. We do not know if she will deliver it here tonight, of course. It could be one of two kinds, but we do know that she will be acting very quickly to whatever the Trump campaign does. So look, 1 hour before polls close in critical Georgia, this election is still going on. People are still being contacted if they have not voted.
And as you know, Jeff, one of the key advantages the Harris campaign thinks that they have is a turnout operation that is within their campaign. They have full control over it, and they believe it's been working at full capacity in the last couple of weeks. Back to you, Jake.
Thanks, Abby.
Back
Thanks,
to you,
Jeff.
Jake.
Let's go to Caitlin Collins now, who's at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Caitlin, what are you learning about Mr. Trump's mindset this evening?
That he's a lunatic?
Well, Jacob, there's obviously a difference in Trump and his campaign itself. Trump himself has been making baseless claims about fraud happening already, even though officials that we're talking to in those cities like Philadelphia.
Bro, what's amazing is it's not even over and he's already making the fraud claims.
I'm here at the convention center with Kristen Holmes as well. And obviously, there's what Trump is saying on Truth Social. What are you hearing from the campaign about the numbers that they're tracking behind the scenes and what they're paying the closest attention to?
Well, Caitlin, right now, everything is coming down to voter turnout on election day. I mean, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of wondering about how that early voting actually translate on election day. Are those new voters? Are those new Republican voters? Or are those people who were going to actually show up on election day? There's a lot of trying to track that. Now, we know with Donald Trump is he's actually doing the exact same thing that we hear the Harris campaign is doing, is trying to reach those voters to drive out turnout today. He has done at least 5 tele-rallies with various demographic groups. That includes tele-rallies in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, as well as tele-rallies targeting
Tele-rallies? Why isn't he
unregistered
going.
voters and seniors.
I
They
thought
are
Trump
trying to
loved
get as
doing
many
that
people to
rally.
show up at the polls as they possibly can. Now, in terms of what they're tracking, they
Oh,
are
I got a
actually looking at one of
notification
their
from
apps
Ko-Fi
they had
Bob
set up,
being like,
the Trump
someone
Force 47, which is
sent a
their
donation
way
on
of
Ko-Fi.
essentially
Thank
giving away
you.
their ground game to people on the ground, to volunteers. They are looking to see how many of those volunteers are tracking their people that they were supposed to reach out and bring to the polls actually voting, because if they're not tracking the number, they want to reach out again and make sure that they're actually doing everything they can to get those people to the polls. This was part of their ground game strategy. It's also why it's so risky, because you're depending on volunteers instead of actual professionals. We'll obviously have to see if it pays off.
Yeah, it's a big bet that they are
I'm
making
actually
on
like
this election
dreading
day
the
vote.
amount
They
of
felt
like
good about the early
BS
vote.
that
We'll see how
Trump
they
and
feel about
Elon Musk
the
are going to
numbers that we're seeing
say.
coming in now. And obviously, Jake, North Carolina and Georgia, those polls set to close. Those are two of the states that the Trump campaign is watching the close list as maybe a read on how the whole night can go for them.
All right, thanks, Kaylin and Kristen. We're getting another important read on the electorate from the exit polls. David Chalian's back. David, what are we learning about when voters made up their minds about who they were going to vote for, whom, I should say, for president?
Jake, we've talked so much about how each candidate was closing at the end and the very small slice of voters left undecided. Most voters decided long ago. Look at this. When did you make up your mind and decide on your presidential vote? Only 3% of voters nationwide in these preliminary exit poll results say in the last few days. 3% say in the last week. 6% say in October,
who's
7% in
undecided?
September. 80% of voters say before September they were already locked into their choice. And it looks pretty similar if you look among Harris supporters versus Trump supporters. Among Harris supporters, only 3% in the last few days and 3% in the last week. Again, 80% before September were locked in. And on the Trump side, we look at his supporters in the last few days, 3%, in the last week, 4%. 81% of his supporters were locked in before September. So it was a small slice of folks here that were deciding at the very end.
All right, David Chalian, fascinating stuff. Dan and Bash, I mean, most people made up their minds long ago, but still, in an election with margins this thin, 3% making up their mind in the last few days, 3% making up their mind in the last week, that's not insignificant.
It is not insignificant. And this matches exactly what we've been told from both campaigns about how, yes, relative to the whole electorate, it's very small, but how targeted they have tried to be towards those, what we call late breakers. And this is just proof that they were right about how narrow it is, again, broadly, but how and why it was so important for each of those campaigns to be targeting the people that they thought were most likely to come their way. And we saw it in the messaging, particularly if you think about Harris, even in the last 24 hours, reaching out to people that they weren't sure, promising that if they're a Republican or an independent, that they are not going to have to worry about her governing anything other than across the aisle. Whether they bought it, that's a different question.
Chris and I were chuckling earlier at a voter from Grand Rapids, Michigan. His name was Josh, who said that he was coming out to vote for Donald Trump. But what was interesting is he was voting on the economy, and he said he had not voted since Obama. That is the Trump fantasy, the low propensity male voter who comes out and votes on the economy.
You know, I can take your point. 3% in the last few days, 3%, even I can do that math, 6% in the last week is not nothing and could be the difference between victory and defeat. On the other hand, when you think of how unknown Kamala Harris was to the general electorate, the idea that 80% of the people had decided they were going to vote for her without knowing almost anything about her.
Yeah, but they
only
knew she was a
7%
Trump.
in September, which was the big debate that was generally seen as a big victory for her and not Trump. Yes, if the billions make the difference between victory and defeat, it was worth it. But man, 87% before we even got to October 1st. That's pretty amazing.
Because that's America right now. It's shirts and skins. The 80%, I mean, not to say that they didn't love her, but they're likely like either hardcore Democrats or hardcore never, ever am I going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, but to go to Chris's point, you have
Actually,
to
that's
slingshot
not
away
just America,
into the
'cause
public
a lot of people
consciousness
don't
and very quickly against somebody who had been running essentially for a decade.
Which they never
So
talk
I think
about.
it's
They never
actually
talk
pretty
about how many
remarkable
people
what we're
don't
seeing.
even.
All right, we're counting down to our first chance to make projections in the presidential race. That's at the top of the next hour. We're inside key polling places in these final hours, and minutes before they close, this election night, we'll be heading into overdrive very soon. Brew a cup of coffee for yourself. Stay with us.
I already did, brah.
November 17th, I'm venturing across the globe to see how these new weight loss medications are transforming lives and disrupting the industry.
These drugs are very effective, but they're not going to be for everyone.
Is Ozempic right for you? November 17th at 8 p.m. on CNN.
Bro, I don't want to watch it too much. Let's see what these lunatics are saying.
Last time corporate rates were that high, corporations went and they moved to Ireland when the Ireland corporate tax rate was at 9%. You remember that, Larry?
But I think that the trouble here is young men have a hard time making money, getting jobs. If they get married as young men, they can't afford to buy a home. They can't afford to buy an automobile. You know, some numbers printed out. It's a very good op-ed piece. If you look at all insurance, let's take a car, just a car, okay? Right. Price of the car, the insurance of the car, the gasoline
Everything
that goes
about
into
this
the car.
lie, I can't.
That thing has gone up about 35 to
anything that has to do with the economy and people not being able to afford a house is because of policies that they support. They love the hedge fund billionaires. They love cutting the corporate tax rates and making it impossible for people to buy a house. Like, spare me. I can't even.
Line only a short time ago. They're sending more voting machines there. Election officials are, and the campaign sending more support in the form of some of its surrogates to keep those folks in line in hopes that they'll come out in favor of Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
Hallie.
Pennsylvania is so critical to that campaign and to the former president's campaign as well. Peter Alexander, I hope you got your coffee handy. We'll be talking with you, I know, in just a little bit. We're also getting exit polls out of not just the national landscape here, but some of those key swing states. Remember, exit pollsters post up at some 600 locations all across the country. So let's get a look at some of the results here. And I want to start here with the blue wall. So remember, that's Pennsylvania, that's Michigan, that's Wisconsin. Favorability, unfavorability. Again, favorable. Both candidates here are below 50%. This largely tracks to a degree to what we saw nationally. Sunbelt, very similar story here too. I want to get to the fact that polls are starting to close now. Looking at my watch in just about 45 minutes in some of those key battlegrounds. We're going to start on the East Coast. We're going to start with Georgia. And you can see Indiana, Kentucky, Vermont, Virginia, South Carolina as well. But it's Georgia that we're going to be watching for, that you should be watching for.
And for those of you who don't know,
30 minutes later, you've got North Carolina. This is one that is so fascinating here. Remember, former President Trump won this state.
For those of you who are not in the United States, the reason why they're focusing on just a handful of states is because it's only a handful of states that will decide our elections. It's about six states that actually matter in regards to determining who wins the election because of our ridiculous, outdated, antiquated electoral college scam.
But it looks like it is, based on public polling, a very close race. And then at 8 o'clock, buckle up, because that's when it hits, right? Pennsylvania, the all-important battleground here, along with a slew of other states, including some with key Senate races, for example, like in Maryland. Ohio also has one. That'll be closed by 8 p.m. too. Polls close there at 7:30. We've got a lot to get to tonight, and we're going to continue our rolling coverage. We're going to take you live to 3 of these critical swing states in just a couple of minutes, checking in with our teams in Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin as our special coverage of Decision 2024 continues.
This is a hot flash.
Wisconsin and Michigan and Georgia and North Carolina and beyond. And you're just seeing, are people turning out? And so you can go back. This is early, this 33% of the vote. But you can just go back and check it against prior elections. Too early to make that comparison now. But I just want to show you.
It probably won't be announced tonight.
Is Donald Trump overperforming or underperforming Donald Trump, since he's the constant in this election? He's been on the ballot 3 elections in a row. So then you come back there. Let's come out of there and come back to 2024 and pop out. This one's a little bit more interesting when you come up here, Kenton County. Why? Because this is Cincinnati suburbs. You see Cincinnati right there. The Cincinnati airport is actually here in Covington, Kentucky, across the bridge right there. Sorry, I just touched that by accident. Let's come back to it here. And so you bring out the county here, and you see Donald Trump running, again, 40% of the vote, 43% of the vote there. Donald Trump getting 59%. So you just want to go back in time in an area that is more rural as you get down here, but quite suburban up here. Let's just take a look. 59% now, 59% last time. So Donald Trump at the moment, we're not done with the count there, but at the moment, Donald Trump is tracking Donald Trump 2020. Let's take a look at 2016. And you come look at 2016, Donald Trump gets 60, if you would round that up there in 2016. And at the moment, he's getting 59. So he's essentially tracking where he was in a state that he won comfortably. Again, might be a useless exercise as you get through the night, but sometimes you're just looking, how is Donald Trump doing compared to Donald Trump in past elections in the red states? And again, so far, when you look here in Indiana, it's the same question. We're not in any of the giant voting areas yet. You just take a peek here, 2024, Donald Trump getting 62%. You just go back to check. Donald Trump getting 73% there.
All right, guys,
again,
I'm cutting an
I wanna see
onion,
what
so if I
percentage of the
start
vote we have
crying.
here. Yeah, we're at 39%. So just something to keep an eye on, right? And is it going to matter in Indiana? Probably not. But if Donald Trump's turnout or margins are down
Over
a
the
little
course
bit
of
in
the
these other
night
places,
of the
Jake,
2000
sometimes
election
you
was
can
the
take one
absolute worst.
state and
Yeah,
then
it
find a
was. We
community
stole
county
that
like it
election,
in
and
a
that was kind of
battleground
the
state
beginning of
and
the
start to do a little
descent
more
into
analysis.
fascism.
Right now, it's early. We're just kind of looking for curiosity purposes.
All right, fascinating stuff with the first actual votes coming in. Aaron Burnett is helming our battleground state command center. Aaron.
I like how you call it the
Dumbass
command
command
center. And as
center.
of course we're getting some of those early results in as John is going through, Jake is going through, we are also watching the vote come in and people still at polling stations. Macomb Township, Michigan, outside of Detroit, is where Jim Sciutto has been. I saw you a moment ago as we were getting ready to come to you, speaking to a young voter there, Jim. What are you seeing as people are still voting there?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Aaron, Macomb County went for Trump in the last cycle. Big question this cycle is, does Trump maintain the support he saw last time? But interestingly, we just met a voter. I'm going to introduce you to him now, Jimmy Fan, who voted for Biden last cycle in 2020. But he told us just a short time ago he's voting for Trump this cycle. Jimmy Fan, he's a small business owner, father of 3 and soon to be 4 next week, as I found out. But Jimmy, tell me, what was your deciding factor in this election?
I was thinking Trump would be a better choice on this election. He would run for when he run the office. I think he would get a lot of stuff down, like when he was the president. You know, the economy.
Oh
and
my gosh!
For this elections, more than just more than just just vote somebody. So
This is what I can't deal with when it comes to the way that people talk about Trump and the economy, because people don't know shit. They think that Trump was better for the economy because he was operating off of Obama's economy. He blew the economy up. And then the Biden administration came in and had to clean it up. Like, people think, which is so fucking dumb, that like the economy or the world or the country resets every time a new president comes in. It's like, no, bro, the decisions that Trump made in his administration affected the Biden administration. So like the way he ran up the deficit, the way that he hurt workers, the tax cuts for the rich, all of those things took effect and caused inflation in Biden's administration. So we felt the effects of Trump's economy in Biden's administration. But Republicans don't get this insanely basic concept. They're like, I don't know, it felt better under Trump and we had inflation under Biden. We had inflation under Biden because of Trump's policies. Oh my gosh.
The economy was stronger for you as a business owner when Trump was president than during the last 4 years of Biden.
That's correct. Yeah, I feel like even though with a lot of stimulus, a lot of that stuff coming through, but I feel like business would run a lot better when Trump was the president. But when he's if he win this time, I think we would get to that ladder.
Question: some voters you hear, they wonder whether their vote will count. Do you have faith in the voting system here in Michigan that your vote will count and the votes will be counted fairly?
I mean, in this Macomb system, I think is legit. Yeah, but I feel last time was robbed it. A little bit.
You have a question about the 2020 election?
Yes. Because I look at the the poll. It was was dominant one day and then another day it just flipped upside
So
down.
apparently this guy doesn't understand how polls work, or the red mirage, because as I explained in the video I made last night, it was already predicted and known that Trump was going to be leading on election day in 2020 until the mail-in ballots were counted. Oh my gosh, I can't. Americans really not escaping the allegations that we're fucking idiots.
Now they're flipping then, but
like
this
embarrassing.
election, you're confident your vote will count. Jimmy Fan and his family, congratulations on the baby to be. Thanks so much for joining. Of course, the big question, looking forward, will there be more
my
voters
eyes, the
like him, and
onions.
what that'll mean for the state of Michigan?
Right. And of course, what he just said to you, Jim, is so important. When he said, all right, he didn't
That's not
really have
true,
faith last time,
Brian.
but this time,
That's
in
not
his
true.
Specific
Energy costs
voting
did not
area,
go
he
up.
has
In
confidence
fact,
in the
go
system and in his
Google
vote. And that's
energy
what's important.
production
That's what we want
when
to
it was
hear.
highest.
Let's go to
You'll
Sarah
see that
Seidner.
it's
She's in
been the
Cedarburg,
highest
Wisconsin,
under
just
Biden.
outside Milwaukee. Sarah, now it looks like, I don't know if this is the after work crowd that you're seeing, but it does look like it is quite busy right now.
It is, and it's been getting busier. And as you mentioned, 5 o'clock hit and we started seeing another run of people. It's been sort of trickling all day. It was lots of people in the morning, and now we're starting to get a lot more people in the evening. I do want to bring in quickly the Fellows Lease family. What we have been seeing that is so lovely here in Cedarburg is that entire families are showing up, voting separately, but together. Please tell me, what was your big issue? Was there one or two that you showed up for?
I think honesty and integrity would be two really important factors in the candidates.
And as for you?
I would go with that. I think honesty, integrity, and plans for the future, a forward-looking candidate is what I was looking for.
Would you mind sharing with me who you voted for and why?
I voted for Kamala Harris, and I'm super proud to the idea of the first ever woman
It's
being
Kamala,
in the seat
racist.
of the presidency is remarkable, and it's so exciting. And I think it's really important having daughters. We have another daughter that's home tonight.
We're taking your
but
vote
these
for
two
Kamala
to
away
see
because
this
you didn't say her
process and
name
just
right.
know that there's no limits to what they can do in their lives.
And as for you?
I'm so excited for these girls to see.
Brian, costs went up
this
under
election with
Biden
a
because
female
of the decisions
on
that the
ballot
Trump
and
administration
to
had made.
have that opportunity for leadership from a female perspective.
Brian, this is going to be a very long night. And for you writing all this ridiculous stuff, like, you should be a member at this point, because I shouldn't have to put up with this for free. Okay. The economy was bad under the Biden administration at the beginning because of the decisions that the Trump administration had made. Go look at the economy now. Go look at all the metrics that Trump likes to use. The stock market, the S&P 500, unemployment, all of it. Better under Biden than under Trump. I can't stand when people make me defend Biden. I really resent it.
I think it's awesome.
I noticed that you did this lovely thing where they were showing you the ballots and sort of how it was working. I heard you guys talking back and forth, and it was just wonderful to see families teaching and also learning about this really important process that we all should be taking part in. And Cedarburg, as we understand it, may have up to 95% of the voters to vote, which is an incredibly high number. So thank you so much for doing your civic duty and coming in today as the whole family. I love it. It's wonderful. Appreciate it. That's a scene here in Cedarburg, a picturesque town with a very big family feel.
Yes, absolutely. And interesting when they were telling you, Sarah, honesty and integrity, just that feeling from that family. And then we had just heard from Jim with the voter he was speaking to in Michigan, where that voter was going for Trump. And that was based on economic issues, which we've heard from other voters who have spoken to some of our reporters.
Which,
about
again,
states across
I'll
the country
never
who
let
have
this go. He's
chosen to
not
vote for
better on
Trump.
the
So
economy,
we'll see
period.
what it all means. Thanks very
It's
much
just
to you, Sarah and
propaganda.
Anderson. That's
It's just
the most
Hezbollah.
fascinating part of this, is hearing from these individual voters and their different reasons for making the choice they did.
Yeah, and the potential turnout in that county incredibly high. David Chalian has been looking at exit poll data over the last hour or so. He's got some new numbers. David, you have some new numbers on voters' views of the candidates.
Yeah, it's sort of a basic popularity measure that we look at, Anderson. You have a favorable or an unfavorable opinion of the candidate. So do you have a favorable opinion of the candidates? Is this one here? 46% of voters across the country in this election say only a favorable opinion of Harris. 42% say they have a favorable opinion only of Donald Trump. 2% say both Harris and Trump they have a favorable opinion on. And interestingly, 8% say they don't have a favorable opinion of neither. That's a bit higher. When we asked this 4 years ago, it was only 3% who said neither.
Probably
to Biden
because of
and
the
Trump,
genocide in Gaza,
4 years ago,
bro.
but it's not as high of the folks who said neither 8 years ago when it was Clinton Trump in 2016. Who is too extreme? 36% of Americans nationwide voting in this election tell us only Harris is too extreme. 47%, nearly half, say only Trump is too extreme.
I'm making
8% say
tacos.
both, 5% say neither. What is your feeling if Donald Trump is elected president? So 22% excited, 26% optimistic, 48%, nearly half say excited or optimistic, 14% concerned, and the plurality, 36%, say they are scared if Trump is elected president. You see there, the bottom two add up to 50%. We asked the same thing about Harris. What are your feelings if Harris is elected president? You see
the
49%
negative numbers are still higher for
excited
Trump.
or optimistic. 20% are concerned. And she has a lower number, 28%, who say they'd be scared. But again, splitting roughly in half between excited and optimistic and concerned or scared if Harris is elected president.
All right, we'll keep looking at these exit polls as sometimes frustrating or Rorschach test-like they are. We're tracking the first presidential votes of the night from Kentucky and Indiana, and we're closing in on the first major round of poll closings, including the high-stakes battleground of Georgia. Stay right here for real-time results. That's all ahead.
Bro, don't go to a commercial already.
Election coverage continues, and we've got you covered like only CNN can. Follow every result. Follow every dramatic development. Follow the facts. Follow CNN.
No, I didn't mean to go to
5%, 35% for Donald Trump. So I imagine if we were
play through a couple of different scenarios here because Republicans basically have 46 safe seats, Democrats 42. Democrats playing a lot more defense. If the Republicans are able to hold Florida, hold Texas with Senator Ted Cruz, and hold Nebraska, they're at 49. You need 50 if you also have the presidency to control the Senate. West Virginia.
Yeah, we always make tacos
whenever
whenever there's an election. My husband and I.
Of Senator Joe Manchin, that alone could be enough if Donald Trump wins the presidency. But even if he does not, there's still a bunch of opportunities. The Democrats would have to hold all of the other seats that we're looking at right here. That includes places including Montana with John Tester on the ballot and Ohio, both states where Donald Trump is heavily favored to win at the top of the ticket.
No question. A lot of eyes on that Montana and Ohio Senate race. Rick Klein, such a pleasure to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hannah.
All right, we, of course, are keeping tabs on the candidates today, as you know, so we want to now turn to ABC News' Eva Pilgrim, who is outside Howard University in Washington, D.C., where the vice president will be spending her evening. Eva, it's so wonderful to see you, and it sounds like the Harris campaign, even now, is kind of still pounding the pavement. What kind of voter in this moment are they realistically after right now?
Yeah, Kana, it's really unusual, you know, at this point in the campaign on Election Day for them to still be door knocking. But the campaign was out there door knocking this morning. They told us that before 11 a.m. they had door knocked 100,000 doors in the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, you have to think about that. And the reason that they are doing that is because they think that there are still some people out there that they can persuade to vote for the vice president. Now, the voters that they are going after are what they're calling soft Trump voters. These are voters that they think have been turned off in the recent days from the former president's messaging. And
yeah, I don't see how
it has been very positive. She's focusing on
I don't see how
on bringing
Tester
people
wins.
together, on joy, on the future.
I feel like
on
Tester
the
might
very things
lose.
that
I
people
feel
are
like
saying
the
they
Democrats
care
might
about
lose.
when it comes to economic issues, being able to afford the basics for family, food, childcare.
Thank you, AJ.
Those types of things. She's been very much staying in that messaging as she talks to these voters. She actually went to a phone bank at some point today and even made phone calls. So she is very much giving all that she's got in these final moments before the polls close. They literally are not going to stop reaching out to voters. They've also been doing the whole get out the vote campaign as well, trying to get the base to come out. But they still think that there's voters out there to grab, and they're going for it.
Wow, it was fascinating to see her herself actually door knocking voters in Pennsylvania as well last night. And so, Eva, how much does the Harris campaign think perhaps all these celebrity endorsements and performances might be
It's not
helping
going
in
to
this
change
last minute
anything.
push?
Yeah, we've seen those star-studded, huge rallies with,
People
really
aren't
incredible
voting on that.
performances.
Hillary
Lady
Clinton
Gaga,
got a
Bruce
ton of celebrity
Springsteen. You saw
endorsements.
Oprah last night out
Besides,
there.
how can they compete with
And the
Hulk
thing, I was at the
Hogan?
Philly rally last night, and the thing that you notice when you see these people coming out is, yes, some of them are drawn by the musical acts, but a lot of them, when they get out there, there is a sense of community that builds, and
Is
in
there,
that
though?
community, there is momentum. There is sort of excitement. So many people that we spoke to said, they brought their children out very late in Philadelphia last night on the Parkway there in front of the Rocky Steps because they felt like this was a moment in history and they wanted their little ones to see it. And they're talking to their friends about it. So that's what the campaign is hoping to get out of those big rallies with the big musical acts and the celebrities, is that excitement.
I
that
was
word of
excited
mouth,
about
that
the whole
grassroots
historic
campaigning that
first
we
woman
always talk
president
about.
thing
That's
too, but
the stuff
then
that they need
there
from
was the
people
whole
right now,
genocide
and they
thing,
need it
which
in those
kind of
big urban centers like Philadelphia, Kana.
it kind of got rid of
No
that
question about
excitement.
that.
You
All
know?
right, Eva Pilgrim, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always great to have you. We also want to bring in ABC News anchor Whit Johnson as well, who is live from Trump's campaign headquarters at Mar-a-Lago in Florida on this very important night. Whit, I'm so happy to see you as well. And look, there's been a lot of focus in these early hours, specifically on North Carolina and Georgia as well. And I'm just curious, in those states in particular, we're already hearing about how Trump's last-minute message of that question, are you better now than you were 4 years ago?
I can't stand that. Are you better now than you were 4 years ago? 4 years ago, we were in a historic pandemic.
Yeah, Kana, that's
That was
exactly
being
a major part of
handled
Trump's
by
closing
Trump's
message here. The
incompetence.
idea that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration broke it and that only Trump can fix it. And that question you pointed out, that is one that he asked at almost all of his rallies here down the final stretch. But speaking of those two states, everyone knows, and as Rick just laid out there, how critical North Carolina and Georgia are for a Trump path to victory. I just spoke with the Trump advisor here a short time ago. They really
Brian
like what they're
Kemp
seeing in
purged
early
a bunch
voting
of the
in
voter rolls in
Georgia. His
Georgia in
quote to
order
me
to
was
give
that
Donald Trump
rural
the edge.
turnout is through the roof in that state, and that's exactly what the Trump campaign wants to see there. In North Carolina, they're also seeing some encouraging signs in the early vote. Republicans outpaced Democrats in early voting in North Carolina for the first time in state history. Now, there are some important caveats.
Well, North Carolina
there
has been a red state
or
like
unaffiliated
for the
voters
last
outpaced
3
both
cycles.
Republicans and Democrats. So which way they flip on election day will ultimately potentially determine that outcome. And then the other question is, for the Republicans who voted early, are these new Republicans that were brought into the fold, or are these Republicans who previously voted on election day but then came out and voted early? So those will be some big questions that we're watching tonight.
And are they a sure Trump vote? As we know, this battle is so in the margins and it is so fascinating. Whit, can you take us behind the scenes? What has Trump been doing today and his plans for the evening?
He's been tweeting and talking on Truth Social.
Sources tell us that Donald Trump has not had a whole lot of sleep. He was up late. He did a very late event in Michigan last night, was on the plane back to Florida. He's been on the phone. He's been talking to people with the campaign, friends and colleagues all throughout the course of the day. We know that he, with his wife, the former First Lady Melania Trump, they cast their ballots here in Florida this morning. And then later this evening, Trump is hunkering down with his friends and colleagues at Mar-a-Lago. There are several gatherings that are happening there. There's a more private gathering.
Bro, he's always
family
at
members and other
Mar-a-Lago.
colleagues and friends, people like Elon Musk will be in attendance there. Then there's another gathering.
Of
We're
course.
here at the convention center, and this is where the election night reception is happening. Thousands of Trump supporters and surrogates will be here, and we're told if Trump decides to speak tonight, he would then motorcade from Mar-a-Lago here to the convention center. Now, of course, Democrats, the Harris campaign has raised the concern, what if Donald Trump declares victory before a winner has been projected, like he did in 2020? We have pressed the Trump campaign about that to see what plans they might have in place. We know that former advisor Steve Bannon encouraged Trump to speak to people early in the evening. Campaign advisors tell us, look, they are watching everything. They told us maybe he would come out and speak after the East Coast results come in, maybe after when they feel confident they have 270 electoral votes. But one advisor told me, look, Trump is going to do what Trump wants to do, so they're going to be ready to respond in the moment.
and come out and just lie and say
270
that they
is
won even
anything
when they
but clear
don't.
and anything but easy in these hours. Whit Johnson, thank you so much for being here with us. We now want to go to our Deputy Political Director, Avery Harper, who has more on these preliminary national exit polling data. And so, Avery, what are you now seeing at this hour?
Right, we're looking at some more data here, Kana, and now we're getting an idea about folks' perceptions of the economy. Of course, one of the most important issues as folks decide who they're casting their ballot for. When asked about the condition of the nation's economy, only 33% said excellent or good, and 66% said not
The
so
thing
good
that's so
or
annoying
poor.
about this is
We
that
know
a lot of
former
the
President
issues
Trump
with
has
our
really leaned
economy,
into the issue of
and
the
you know this
economy
if you pay
as he has
attention to
campaigned
things,
around the country,
are
particularly in
systemic
these
issues that
battleground
are not
states.
going to be
And
fixed by one
according
single
to some of the
president.
polling that ABC News has
Like,
done,
they need to be
we know that there are
addressed
more Americans who
fundamentally.
trust him to handle the issue of the economy, and so that could perhaps be a good sign for him. If we look at the
Bro,
next
I wouldn't
slide
trust
here,
him to handle my
we
luggage.
can also see information about how inflation has caused, or what has inflation done to your family. That was one of the questions that was asked in this preliminary exit poll data that we're seeing. 21% said severe hardship. 53% said moderate hardship, and 24% said no hardship at all. Of course, again, this is weighing on folks as they decide who they're casting their ballots for. Things like the cost of living, things like how much groceries cost, of course, affecting how folks are casting their ballot. And lastly, if we take a look at this next slide
Which
here,
again, the
we
cost
see
of
what
groceries
this
has to do
preliminary
with
exit poll
corporate
data
price
says.
gouging. If you're a
was
working
asked
class
to folks,
person,
are
you've been having
America's
a hard
best
time
days
regardless of who's
behind us
president.
or in the future?
I struggled under
61%
Trump's
said
first
they
term,
were in
under
the future. So
Biden,
a little bit
and
of
under
optimism there
Obama.
from
Like,
the
it didn't
folks who
matter.
responded to this exit poll. 34% saying in the past. And of course, we know that Make America Great Again is the slogan of the Trump campaign. And a lot of folks who identify with that campaign can identify with the notion of America's days being in its past. So perhaps this is a good sign for the Harris campaign here. Of course, there's so much more exit poll data to parse through. And so I'll be here doing that throughout the night. Kana.
Yeah, that future question certainly is an interesting one to comb through, isn't it? Avery Harper, thank you so much for being here
What's
with
the
us.
purpose
And
of
we have a
these
lot more
random
special coverage
numbers
ahead here on
going around?
ABC
It's
News Live
exit
of
polling.
Election
It's
Night
those
in
like
America
questions
as
that they
voters
ask
across
people
this
once they
country
voted.
decide whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris should lead us. We want to take you live to a polling location in Milwaukee. You're watching ABC News Live.
What's good to watch? Read? Where can I get a great deal on what I'm just
This
dying
is
to
the
buy?
level of
It's
propaganda.
all right here. GMA Life. All the exclusive and buzziest celebrity good stuff. Deals and steals with amazing savings and the
These
coolest
morning
lifestyle
shows
tips from
freak
Good
me
Morning
out.
America.
I love that so much.
GMA Life. Streaming weekends
Like
on
all of
ABC
them.
News
All
Live.
of those morning shows like creep me out. Come on. What a weird ad.
If you're shopping for a home, you could browse hundreds of listings to find homes with big yards, or compare lot sizes all at once. Search in full color to find space to grow. Home search will never be the same again.
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about our honeymoon. What about Africa? Safari. Hot air balloon ride. Swim with elephants.
Wait, can we afford a safari? Great question. Like everything, takes a little planning. Or put the money towards a down payment
On a ranch
in Montana.
with horses.
Let's take a look at those scenarios.
JP Morgan Wealth Management has advisors in Chase branches and tools like Wealth Plan to help keep you on track. When you're planning for it all, the answer is JP Morgan Wealth Management.
No. All of these places are horrible. Oh my God.
That's easy. That's too easy.
It was so easy. No. I do not want to listen to these lies. Of course, Linda. Honestly, the level of manipulation is insane. True. Yeah, it is live, Ahmed. What are your predictions, you guys? Who do you think is going to win? Yeah, we're one of the only countries that allow pharmaceutical ads. Like, how crazy is that? Yeah, he did fire Gallant. I made a video about that. I posted actually like right before I went live about him firing Gallant. Key race alert.
For the hour, but right now more early votes are coming in. We have a key race alert. Let's take a look at the actual votes here from Indiana. Donald Trump in the lead, 58.1% of the vote. Kamala Harris in second place, 40.6% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 53,428 vote lead. That's with 10% of the estimated vote in from the state of Indiana. On to Commonwealth Kentucky, Donald Trump in the lead there, 66.4%
This is not a surprise
of the vote.
because right now we're
Kamala
talking
Harris
about red
in
state.
second there with 32.4% of the vote. Donald Trump up there. His lead is 31,523 votes. That's with 4% of the estimated vote in. We're about to get our first chance to make projections in this historic race.
I subscribed to Blakely so I wouldn't have to watch
the
TV.
top of the
Thank
hour
you.
when voting ends
Thank you.
in 6 states, and a total of 60 electoral votes are up for grabs. Remember, it takes 270 electoral votes
Guys,
to win the election.
The only reason why
All
I
polling
have
places
CNN on
are
is I'm
scheduled to
switching
close
back and
just
forth
minutes
because
from
they
now
have the real
in
time
Georgia,
election.
Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont.
They don't
and
show
the
you the
Commonwealth
third
of
party
Virginia. We're
because
closely
they
watching
want to do
Georgia.
propaganda
That
on
is
behalf
the
of the
first of
two-party
7 high-stakes
system.
presidential battlegrounds on the line tonight. Kamala Harris trying hard.
That's why they don't show you.
Georgia stay blue after President Biden flipped it 4 years ago. Donald Trump, of course, eager to win Georgia back. That's, of course, a state where he has been criminally charged with trying to overturn his 2020 election loss in that state. Let's check in with our campaign correspondents now. First, Abby Phillip at Harris Campaign Headquarters here in Washington, D.C. Abby, as we stand by waiting for the vote to close in Georgia, what's the latest you're hearing from the campaign?
Well, Jake, they are watching very closely what has been happening throughout the day, and it's seemingly increasingly as we get toward that poll closing deadline at the top of the hour, which is that there have been bomb threats being called in to polling places throughout the state of Georgia, Fulton County, DeKalb County, Cobb County, and others. These threats are non-credible. They are not believed to be credible, but they are being investigated. And as a result, some of these polling places maybe temporarily were closed, voters turned away. I was speaking to a senior Democrat down there in Georgia, watching this very carefully, saying they are hoping that voters will come back. Anyone who might have been scared away in those periods of time will come back and will cast their ballots. Some of those polling places also, Jake, are being kept open a little bit after
This is how
the top
insane
of the
our
hour. So this
country
is
is that
an
people
ongoing
are
situation that they are
calling in
watching
bomb
very
threats
closely
to
because of
polling
where
places.
this is happening. This is happening in the parts of the state where the Harris campaign and Democrats
Well,
need to
AJ, at
drive
this
up
point,
turnout
Ohio is
among
like full red state.
Democratic-leaning voters. So when you have polling places that are closed temporarily, that's a problem for them, and they want to make sure that those voters end up coming back.
I never
Jake.
voted
All right, Abby
before
Phillip with the
this.
Harris campaign.
Tristan,
Let's
did
go
you vote
now to
this
Caitlin Collins
time?
in West Palm Beach with the Trump campaign. What are Trump campaign aides, the top aides, going to be looking for when these polls close at the top of the hour, especially in the battleground state of Georgia?
Well,
Is
Jake,
this
that's what they're going to
true?
be keeping their eyes on the closest, Georgia and North Carolina. That is really going to serve as basically
I'm
a
going to
gut
take
check
this as a
for the Trump
positive.
campaign as to maybe what kind of night they are going to have going into this. Obviously, Georgia, a lot of Republicans think should
Yes,
be a given
Stein.
for
Oh,
Donald
good for
Trump.
you.
And he is
Good for you
someone who is
voting.
feuded with their popular Republican governor there, Brian Kemp, who held a series of get out the vote events recently and said he will be supporting Donald Trump, but never was really explicitly endorsing him and out on the campaign trail, campaigning with him. They appeared together once at a storm briefing, but that was really it, Jake, especially after Donald Trump trashed his wife. So that is going to be something Trump allies are watching to see if it has any kind of an impact, because he's a popular Republican governor. He is a very sophisticated political machine in Georgia, very impressive fundraising there. And that is also the Trump campaign is
political
hoping to have
machine.
on their
He
side
purged
going
a bunch
into
of
tonight.
voters from the
So they'll be
rolls right
watching
before the
vote share
election. Why
there
are you
very
calling
closely,
his
as well
cheating and
as
his
North
voter
Carolina, because
disenfranchisement politically sophisticated.
Okay, we lost Caitlin Collins. Let's go to David Chalian now, who has some new exit poll information from Georgia to share. David, what issues are driving Georgia voters?
Yeah, this is our first state exit poll that we're looking at of the evening, Jay, in anticipation that the polls are about to close in Georgia. And the number one issue there doesn't match where it is nationally. It's the economy, far and away.
Republicans,
40% of Georgia voters in this election say that the economy is the most important issue. That's got to be welcome news to the Trump campaign there. 28% say democracy, 14% say abortion, immigration at 11%, 3% say foreign policy. We asked about hurricane aid and if it's getting to the people who need it. Look how evenly divided Georgia voters are on this question. 47% say yes, hurricane aid, federal hurricane aid, is getting to the
Republicans
people who need it.
want to cut
say
aid
no,
to
it's
FEMA,
not.
you
Who do you
idiot.
trust to handle a crisis? Georgia voters, slim majority.
They say
51%
Trump
say
when Trump wanted to cut FEMA
47%
funding. What is
say
wrong
Harris.
with you
And then
people?
Biden's job approval in Georgia stands at 41%. Approve of the way President Biden is doing his job. Disapprove 58%. That matches exactly what our national exit poll says of Joe Biden's approval rating as well, Jay.
All right, fascinating stuff, David Chalian. Let's go big picture for a second, Chris. How important is Georgia for the Harris campaign?
And they do
for
such
the Trump
propaganda
campaign?
for Trump because they
I
don't
think
point
it's
out that
more
everything
important for the
that's
Trump
true
campaign
about
than it is
how
for the
much he
Harris
actually boxed
campaign,
the
just
economy.
because there are other ways.
They never point that out. They're just like,
there are other
oh,
ways for both of them
Republicans are voting on
to
the
get to
economy, but they
270,
never
but,
like point
you know,
out what
Georgia
Trump
as a state,
actually
it was
did
kind
to
of
the
a shock
economy.
when Joe Biden won it in 2020. I think it was the first time since Jimmy Carter back in 1980 that a Democrat had taken the state of Georgia.
It was
So
a shock to Donald Trump, too.
yeah, and so the idea that Georgia was even in play, most people didn't think, including me, that it was a swing state. So I think were Harris to repeat Biden's victory, that would be a big problem for Trump. Not as big a problem for Harris if Trump takes it.
Although we should note, Dan Abash, I mean, if you look at this exit poll information from Georgia, it does suggest an electorate in that one state that seems inclined to hear what Donald Trump has to say. You look at that number about who would you rather trust in a crisis, 51% Trump, 47% Kamala Harris. And then more voters in Georgia say that hurricane aid is not going to the people who need it the most. That was a message that Donald Trump was putting out there after the hurricane, that
What's
too many migrants
depressing
were getting
is
that
how people
aid
will
from
just believe
FEMA
something because
instead
someone
of
said it.
the people who need it. I mean,
Rather
FEMA
than
pushed
actually
back, said that was
checking the
not true.
facts,
It was
like
a
where
lie,
the money
and still that was a
actually
Trump
went.
message.
It was, I'll just add to that.
They'll
the
just be like, oh, well,
numbers that
Trump
David
said it,
showed
so I
us on
guess
the
it must be
economy.
true.
Huge issue for people in Georgia as they go to the polls, as it has been across the board. And Georgia is really interesting to me because, first of all, you were just hearing from our reporters. I mean, right now there are bomb threats that are shutting down polling stations, threats in Georgia. That on top of the fact that residents of Georgia lived through the fight over 2020 and the misinformation that Donald Trump put into the sort of information stream like almost nobody else, maybe other than Arizona in this country. And it was Republican versus Republican on that. And yet you still have a slim majority saying that they trust Donald Trump more in a crisis than Kamala Harris, which makes me think, we're going to see the numbers, but makes me think what you do, which is that Georgia is looking better for Donald Trump.
I mean, I know it sounds like a paradox, but Georgia's the state that's the home to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Raphael Warnock. It's always had this moment, and we saw it with Biden, of like, is it transitioning? Does it represent the quote unquote New South? And it has such a diversifying suburban community that I think this will be sort of an interesting election to see, are Democrats on the path to doing something sustainable?
No.
You know, one other thing, yes, economy, the biggest issue by 40%. We tend to think that favors Trump over Harris. But democracy, 28%, abortion, 14% as the second and third issues. So cumulatively, that adds up to 42%. I mean, the issue set is not terrible for Kamala Harris in terms of what people think the most important issue is.
Yeah, but also one of the things that the Trump campaign has been doing in its own way is giving people who are Republicans but not a fan of Donald Trump's behavior, kind of a permission structure to vote
Why
for
do
him
they just
because
always
of
say
the issues that
behavior?
they
It was a
support him on.
shitty
And you really
presidency.
can't find a better
The whole
example of
thing.
that than the governor of Georgia, who Donald Trump has insulted. Donald Trump's even gone after his wife. And yet it's very clear that Governor Kemp, Brian Kemp, is supporting Trump and letting Trump use his sophisticated political machine.
I'm also glad you're bringing up this point.
See how they
because
keep
both
calling it a
campaigns have tried to
sophisticated
look to the voter
political
and say,
machine
"It's
rather
okay,
than
your
voter
vote is private. You may
disenfranchisement, which
not
is
feel
exactly
so
the
confident
fuck
about
it
this,
is.
but it's okay to vote for me."
Let's go to Aaron Burnett now, who's giving us updates from the battleground states throughout the night. Aaron.
All right, Jake, and here we are, as you can see, battleground states across the country getting ready for polls to start closing. Still lines across the country. Voting is about to end, though, in Georgia. Victor Blackwell, that's where you are, and I know you've been talking to officials there. We're getting ready for things to close, just watching some of the action behind you. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we are just minutes away from the polls closing here in Georgia, with the exception of those 10 precincts across the state where there have been extensions granted to compensate for the evacuations and the voting stop down because of those non-credible bomb threats that were called in throughout the day. 2 precincts in Cobb County, the latest they're closing at 7:20. 5 in Fulton County, the latest they're closing at 7:45. 2 here in Gwinnett County, the latest closing at 7:58. Now, those are all in the Atlanta metro area. There's also 1 precinct in Glenn County in southern Georgia near the Florida line. That will be closing at 7:35. For all other precincts across the state, voters have to be in line by 7 p.m. So as long as they are in line, they will be allowed
They
to cast their vote.
also
And then once
rejected
the
some of the
voting is
vote
done,
signatures
the
did not
memory
respond. I
cards from
know,
the
it's so
scanners will
stupid.
go
It's
in
so
one
dumb.
vehicle.
I
Speaking
sign my
specifically here
signature
in
all
Glenn
the time and
County,
it often doesn't
Gwinnett
look the
County,
same.
to the voters' elections office, and then the ballots will be sent in a separate vehicle. So you'll have hundreds of cars, 2 from each of the 156 precincts, in a caravan off to the office, and then they can begin to be
Caravan, a parade of sorts. And what's so important is how transparent it is. The Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, Victor, just the other day, telling, by every 15-minute period, what they expect to have come out. They just want everyone to see the transparency there. All right, as those polls get ready to close, you see Victor there in Georgia. Let's go to Pennsylvania, another battleground state. Polls getting ready to close there in just over an hour. Brian Todd is at a polling place near Pittsburgh, crucial part of the state. Brian, what are you seeing there?
Aaron, heavy voter turnout here in Washington County, just south of Pittsburgh. And you mentioned the polls closing in about a little over an hour. We're expecting a little bit of a late surge here at these precincts. 2 precincts are voting here. I have Craig Zemba here. He's a voter here in Washington County. Just voted. Craig, the operative question we asked so many people: who did you vote for and why?
Right now, Donald Trump.
Okay, why?
And really comes down to just inflation, how things have gone in the last 4 years.
The process, do you trust the voting process? Did it go smoothly for you? There are flare-ups, that a lot of hype and misinformation is out there. Do you trust the voting process here?
I do. I've lived here for a while, and everything's always been very
The
smooth.
reality of
Thanks for talking to us, Craig. Good luck. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, back to you as we expect maybe a late surge here in Washington County. 1 hour left till poll closing.
Yes, the reality is that whoever wins the presidential election, the winner is the Israeli regime.
Brian, thank you. And let's go over to Pamela Brown, the
100%.
voting guest now. So Pamela, first round of statewide poll closings coming. Georgia's going to be in that list here in just a few moments. What are you looking for?
Right. This is huge. Polls are closing there in just minutes, most of the polls. And then an hour after that, we're going to get those first results from this key battleground state. Georgia's Secretary of State is telling us that turnout could exceed 5 million. That's more than 70% of all active voters in the state. So clearly high interest there from voters. We're going to find out that total number sometime after the polls close. So we also know from Georgia election official Gabriel Sterling, who I've just been speaking with, that tonight's first results account counts for 75% of the overall votes. And the Secretary of State there says that he's optimistic we'll know who clinched Georgia by the end of tonight. Now, one note on Fulton County, Georgia populated county and home to Atlanta. We saw several non-credible bomb threats earlier today. We just heard a little bit about that from Victor Blackwell. 5 polling locations were granted a voting extension as much as 45 minutes past 7 p.m. Eastern. Once polls close, the county will have up to an hour to report early vote results, though the expectation is that most precincts will report by just about an hour from now, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be keeping a close eye on this key battleground state that Biden narrowly flipped in 2020 as results start to roll in, Aaron.
That's right. It looked one way, then it looked the other way. It was so close.
11,779.
But who was counting?
Donald Trump was when he called Brad Raffensperger.
All right.
I like how
Pam,
they're like
thank you very
laughing
much.
about the fact they
And I
tried to
hear
steal the
John,
election.
like,
They're like, yeah.
Bye.
Pam's right.
You
Donald
chuckle?
Trump was
That's
counting. I was chuckling because Georgia loved PTSD
Yeah.
over Georgia and all that. But as you see the big clock there, as Pam just said, votes will be coming in soon. 3 minutes, 30 seconds. We got some big polls closings. We'll get to those in a second. We'll look quickly at one thing we have already. The polls are not completely closed. They finished in Indiana. I just want to show you. And again, we're looking at the early results just to see if there are any clues, right? We don't want to overplay things. We also don't want to ignore things that we see, right? So you come right up here. You see one dot of blue in the middle of the Indiana map, right? That's Hamilton County. It's just north of Indianapolis. This, if you went back 20, 30 years ago, you'd see a lot of farms in this county. Now it's much more suburban, especially as you get closer to Indianapolis. Why do I raise that question? It's blue, right? 58% of the vote could flip. Look how close it is. It's 50 to 49. So it could well end up red as it did in 2020 and 2016. But it's just, is this a signal that Kamala Harris in the first election, post-Dobbs, in an issue where we know Donald Trump struggled in the suburbs in the 2018 midterms, struggled mightily in the suburbs in losing in 2020, is this a sign? I pointed out this way. Harris at the moment at 50. Joe Biden was at 46 in this county in 2020, and Hillary Clinton was at 37%.
All of them
in
going to
this
have to
county
try
in
to run up the
2016.
margin.
So the suburbs are critical in key races. Indiana is most likely to stay red. Let's be very clear about that.
Yeah, you're
As
right.
you come back to
Probably will.
2024, again, as you look at these early results that we're getting in some states, you try to seek, is it possible we could look at some other places, look in some of the battleground states and the close-in suburbs. So something to keep an eye on as we go. A quick look at Kentucky. This one's about to close. Some more results have come in. Let's just see if it's any mass to it. Again, Kentucky is a reliably red state. We expect it to stay that way. But you will look, Scott Jennings was talking about this earlier, Fayette County is Lexington in the suburbs. The vice president was a big early lead there. Frankfort is Franklin County. It's Frankfort in the suburbs. You see it there. So let's just compare. So 54%, if you round that up, 2024 at about 42%, 48% for Joe Biden. So right now in Indiana and in Kentucky, you see the vice president at the moment overperforming Joe Biden in some suburban areas. Now they're in red states, so we don't know whether that's going to matter as we get into these states. But we are about to get some clues.
red,
move the
but
map a little bit.
running up
We're
the
about to get
margins
results in
could
Virginia.
be,
Virginia has
you know.
been blue for a while, but it was purple not all that long ago. So here's the question in Virginia tonight, which is going to report results to us very quickly. Do we get a 10-point race as we had in 2020? Do you get Democrats winning by 10? That tells you the vice president is holding the Biden map in a state that will go blue, or do you get a 5-point race as we had in 2016? That would tell you that Donald Trump not only is running up the score in these red rural areas, but that he's improved his standing in the suburbs a little bit. You know, you see in here it's Northern Virginia and down around the Richmond area there. So we'll get some key clues. And then also coming up moments ago, of course, one of the biggest battlegrounds of all, as Pam Brown was just noting, 11,779
Yeah, if that were the
votes.
case,
That
they
was
would
the
try to
margin
overthrow
when Joe
like,
Biden
and
flipped
install
Georgia.
like a new dictator.
The last time it had gone Democrat, Bill Clinton eked it out in 1992, thanks to Ross Perot in part there. But it's been a long time since Georgia. So as Adi noted, is it a state in transition or is it a tug-of-war state?
Yes,
Jake,
I
that's
agree
what
with
we're going to
that.
find out. Again, 11,000 votes.
All right, I'll pause
4
it
years.
really quick so I can. I agree with that. That on the one hand, I'm going to be upset either way. Whoever wins, I'm going to be upset because Kamala Harris winning is, to me, what's disastrous about it is that what it says is that the Democrats are being rewarded for the genocide in Gaza, and that's horrifying and upsetting. If Trump wins, it's going to be upsetting because on domestic policy, he is absolute garbage, and it's going to be a disaster. But yeah, no doubt that Kamala Harris would be better on domestic policy, but you know, that's not what I voted on this time. I voted on foreign policy. I voted on Gaza. And it's upsetting to think that the Democrats could be rewarded for that. But it's also upsetting to think about Trump winning. Ugh. In a real democracy, we should have more choices than this, you know? Wow, we've already gone 2 hours into the stream. That's crazy. Am I the only one that feels like that went really fast? Am I the only one that feels like that went really fast? We've already been on here for 2 hours. That's crazy. And yet, I haven't gotten a single super chat. Not one. Not one. Not even from my haters. Not one single super chat. That ain't right. That ain't right. One of my haters ought to send me a super chat. You're right. Trump is on
The
Adderall.
results in battleground Georgia to come in just about any second now. And again, you look at Atlanta, you look at the suburbs, and you see all that red is Donald Trump's base coming out to vote.
All right, and we are just moments away from the first big round of poll closings. Voting's about to end in 6 states, 6 with a total of 60 electoral votes at stake. Keep an eye on the pivotal battleground of Georgia, Kentucky, that Vermont will. And CNN can bring you a projection now. CNN projects that Kentucky goes to Donald Trump. Donald Trump will win the Commonwealth of Kentucky with its 8 electoral votes. And CNN can also project that Vermont will go to Kamala Harris with its 3 electoral votes. Kamala Harris wins the state of Vermont. It is too early to project in Georgia, Indiana, South Carolina, and Virginia. Let's take a look at the electoral map now to see where the candidates stand. 270 electoral votes are needed to win. Donald Trump has 8. Kamala Harris has 3 electoral votes. Let's bring you a key race alert now. Indiana. Donald Trump in the lead there with 60.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 38.1%.
So what everybody
of the vote.
needs to
Donald
pay
Trump
attention
has an
to
86,000.
are the states that actually matter. Because, yeah, Trump, we knew he was going to win Indiana. We knew that Kamala Harris was going to win Vermont. What we need to spend our thought process on here is the 6 battleground states, which is Georgia, Nevada. Help me out, guys. Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and possibly North Carolina. Thank you so much, Tristan. I finally got a super chat in this stream. Finally got a super chat in this stream. Thank you so much, Tristan. I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate any of the support that I get from you guys. I love you. Arizona. Thank you, Kit Bay. Arizona. That is the last swing state. You're right. Not North Carolina. Arizona. Surprised that Israel doesn't get to vote in U.S. elections. I mean, they kind of do. You're awesome. Thank you, Tristan. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much. Okay.
Right, because if you look here,
So
and
guys, those are
here,
the states that we're looking out for, okay?
159 counties in Georgia. A lot of them are like this. I'm just picking one randomly. They're small, they're rural, but Trump runs it up. So we're going to watch that. Is the Trump base in rural America coming out in battleground Georgia? It is absolutely essential to his math that he run it up big in places like that. But if that is the case, and that's what we expect to be the case, the Trump base comes out, then the key will be
someone's like Israel gets to vote in our elections. They kind of already
and then
do,
what happens
you know?
Clayton County, just below, predominantly African American,
Yeah, AP called
strong
3
Democratic
states.
suburb. You need to run up the number, but it's not just a percentage.
Wait.
Math?
I'm pausing because I have to say thank you to AJ so much for the super chat. A special thank you for giving me faith. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, AJ. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate it a lot. You guys, when you are whether it is a super chat or whether it's a donation to my Ko-Fi, which someone did earlier, but it didn't tell me who you were. So thank you so much. Sorry, my dog is crying. But whether it's a super chat or whether it is a donation to my Venmo or to my Ko-Fi, I appreciate it so much because you guys are what enables me to do this, to be able to make content and do political commentary and talk about all the things that are going on in the world. And it's your support that helps me do that. So I appreciate you so much. I appreciate all of you guys supporting my work. Thank you. Yeah, he said AP just called 3 states, Vermont, Indiana, and Kentucky. True, but those are not the ones that we need to be really focusing on or paying attention to.
Democrats need high
We're paying
turnout to
attention to
offset
6.
Trump rural numbers. So that's one test. And then for me, but you get further out here. let's go out where Victor Blackwell is, out here in Gwinnett County. Right, look at that. Joe Biden got 58% of the vote, Jake, right? You don't have to go back too far in history. It was just in 2012.
My dog
Mitt Romney
cries
won
when
this
he
county.
wants to
4
get on
years
the
before that,
bed.
John McCain won this county.
He
This
cries
is
when
the
he wants to
change
get on
in
the
the American
bed.
suburbs. Right?
And when he
Georgia was a
wants to
red
go
state
out.
then. But look at Romney's number. The Republican share in 2012 in this suburban area is 50. Israel, unhappiness over Israel, Gaza, and how she has talked about that. So what can you glean from this? So you just want to look.
Wait, I wanted to hear what you said about Gaza.
From where the vote has come in, because it's more than 1 million votes have come in, and Donald Trump with a 224,000 plus lead right now.
The number one thing I would define is we have another example, this time in a very large and very complicated state, that people have learned the lessons, built on the lessons of 2020, and that they're counting early votes and getting early votes out fast. And so that's a good thing for democracy.
Peggy,
right?
my dog
So are these all early
red
votes?
state or blue state? I assume they are. David Challing can correct me if I'm not. Some of it could be a modest number of election day votes. But normally when you see a big batch of votes come in like that, it's early votes. So correct me if I'm wrong. So what can you glean from this? So you just want to look at big population centers. Duval County, this is one of the swing counties. Although Florida used to be a very competitive state, you would say who's winning Duval County.
Right.
If you want to say who's winning the governor's race or who's winning Bush versus Gore, you go to Duval County.
Or
it's
one.
not so much as a competitive state anymore, but it is a competitive county, as you see right there, 50 to 49. So you go back in time and you look, it was 51-48.
Yes, Miss
right?
Dean,
So
but that's
you
if
could
you're
argue,
counting
we need
North
to get the final
Carolina
results.
as a
You could
swing
argue if
state.
you want.
We don't really count North
Donald
Carolina
Trump's a
as
little
a
bit more
swing state
competitive.
because of the
This
fact
time,
that it
if that
usually
result
goes
holds,
red.
we'll see how that plays out. Right? This is his home state now. But we'll see. But
Usually
it's early to look at that. But that's one of
It's
the things to
usually
look at.
just
The other
the
thing
other
you'll
side.
look at is, we don't really have it yet, is here. The I-4 corridor, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Orlando, over to the beach, and you see it. And then, the Democrats, again, I don't have no expectation the Democrats are going to win Florida. But again, you will see, are Democrats turning out? Right? Are Democrats turning out? There's some, there's been a lot of reporting about this. Harris lose a little tiny bit of the Jewish vote because of the Israel, unhappiness over Israel, Gaza, and how she has talked about that in the White House. You'll see a little bit of that.
That is
down
so
here. It's
delusional.
more important when you get to suburban
That is
Philadelphia.
so
and some of it,
delusional.
and out in the Detroit area as well. around Metro.
Imagine
So you might get some
wanting
clues
to
out of
vote
Florida.
against
My
Harris
expectation
because
is
you
that
think that
Florida
she
will stay
hasn't
that
been
color, but
brutal to
keep
Gaza
an eye on it.
enough.
Sometimes you get surprised.
Right, and one of the other things that's interesting about trying to divine a national
Her policy has literally been everything that the Israeli regime wants. But because she acknowledged that the Palestinians were human, that's going to upset a certain percentage of voters in Florida to vote against her. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Deranged.
view of based on Florida, which is that, as I recall, Governor DeSantis, who's a very conservative Republican governor, I think he won Miami-Dade when he ran for re-election. Is that not right?
We can go. I think we can look.
You have the governor's. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be.
No, it's all right. If you want to look, there we go.
Yeah.
So that's the Rubio race. We got to come to governor. Yes, he won.
Also,
won
another
Broward.
thing, like,
He won,
regardless of what happens, there are certain
Chris won.
senators that I'm just like, why do you guys keep them around? Like, even if you're a Republican, why don't you guys vote out Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz is a joke. Why don't you guys get rid of him? Find another Republican.
Chris won Broward. Sorry, DeSantis won Miami-Dade.
DeSantis won Miami-Dade.
Yes,
and it was suggested that he also maybe did better than traditionally Republicans had done with the Hispanic vote, which is obviously significant, and that's one of the areas that people wonder about. The vulnerabilities
thought
that
we
Harris
didn't
might
say
have in the
Hispanic
league.
Absolutely. Although I would
thought
say
it
in
was
Florida,
like-
you have the most
no.
complicated, diverse Hispanic vote than
Right.
any state in America. It's just much more diverse than in other places, which what makes it more complicated and fascinating. But it has become, you're absolutely right, that it has become, especially down here, more Republican. In other states, it was, Obama won 2/3 of the Hispanic vote. And now it's become more of a fight in some of the other battlegrounds. But here, this is why one of the reasons Florida has become reliably red is because of the Republican success there. I would also argue it's because of weak Democratic candidates, but we'll save that conversation for another day. Because
Which is the
this
reason
what we're worried about
why
tonight.
it was
Indeed. David Chalian has more exit polling from north
a
of Florida,
mistake for
and
them to
Georgia,
just
the
assume
battleground
that they
we're
could take
watching right
every
now. David, how
vote
is
for
the
granted
vote
because it
splitting
turns out
among key groups?
they're not
of
as
Georgia
partisan like
yeah, now
the
that
Democrats
the polls
the
have
Democrats
closed,
thought
Jake,
they
we can
were.
look at some of those key demographics. So let's take a look at the African American vote in Georgia. It's making up 30% of the electorate, according to these early exit polls. Harris obviously winning it big, 86% to 12%. But I want to note here that 86% number, 4 years ago, Joe Biden had 88%, a tick higher of support of the African American vote.
wild.
And Trump's 12%, he is a tick higher than he was 4 years ago when that was 11%. But it's roughly the same with the black vote, what we saw here. Look at younger voters under the age of 30. Harris is winning them. They make up 18% of the electorate. Harris is winning them 60%.
It's wild to me that Trump would even get 12% of the black vote. Like, that's crazy. And it's crazy to me that Joe Biden would get more of the black vote than Kamala Harris. I mean, we're talking about Georgia right now, and 12% is still not a lot, but I mean, that's still, like, I'm surprised it's even that high, honestly. Not surprised about the youth vote at all.
39%. She is doing better with young voters in Georgia than Joe Biden was doing against Trump 4 years ago. Trump got 43% of the youth vote in Georgia 4 years ago. He's down to 39% now. So that'll be something to watch. And then non-college white voters. This is obviously Trump's base. 32%, roughly a third of the Georgia electorate are white non-college educated voters.
White non-college educated voter here. How they always say white non-college educated voters are Trump's base. I am a white non-college educated voter, and you guys are being had, okay? My fellow white non-college educated voters. You're being had. It's embarrassing that you continue to vote for Trump. It's embarrassing.
Trump's winning 81%
How
of them.
embarrassing.
That is a bit better than he was doing 4 years ago, though 4 years ago, it was 35% of the electorate. So as a share of the overall electorate, it's come down. Harris is winning 18% of them, a tick under where Biden was 4 years ago. But what we saw here, look at younger voters under the age of 30. Harris is winning them. They make up 18% of the electorate. Harris is winning them 60% to 39%. She is doing better with young voters in Georgia than Joe Biden was doing against Trump 4 years ago. Trump got 43% of the youth vote in Georgia 4 years ago. He's down to 39% now. So that'll be something to watch. And then non-college white voters. This is obviously Trump's base. 32%, roughly a third of the Georgia electorate are white non-college educated voters. Trump's winning 81% of them. That is a bit better than he was doing 4 years ago, though 4 years ago, it was 35% of the electorate. So as a share of the overall electorate, it's come down. Harris
You know what I
winning
wonder?
18% of them, a tick under where
Okay,
Biden
so you guys
was.
heard that, right? The share, the electorate in Georgia of white non-college educated voters has gone down from 35 to, what do you say, 32 or 33? That's kind of a lot of people. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's kind of a lot of people. I wonder how, and I know this is speculation on my part, okay? It's pure speculation. But how many of them do you think it's because they died in 2020, in 2021, 2022 from COVID? Kind of thinking about that. Oh, wait, sorry.
4 years ago. This will be the story of these exit polls in Georgia. Independent voters. They make up 31% of the electorate. That is a slightly larger share than what they made up 4 years ago. Trump is winning them by 11 points in these early exit poll results.
Ooh, that's
54%
bad.
to 30%. Jake, 4 years ago, Joe Biden won independent voters in Georgia when he won the state by 9 points. So we've seen a swing of 20 points towards Trump in terms of the margin, from 9-point advantage 4 years ago with independents for Biden to now an 11-point advantage with independents for Trump in Georgia. Jake.
Wow. David Chalian and Dana, that is really significant. We see some incremental changes here and there when it comes to young voters. She's doing slightly better. Non-college whites, he's doing slightly better. But that independent swing is wild.
It's a huge swing. And I just want to underscore what David said. It is a bigger percentage of the vote share. Last time around, it was 28% independents. I made up 28% of the Georgia vote, and now it is 30%. And I was right, 31%. And it is a total flip. It's a complete flip. Donald Trump is doing so much better with independents than Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden kind of ran away with independents 4 years ago. And of course, he won the state.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, so Trump's probably going to win Georgia.
What the reason is that there would be this dramatic flip of double digits in independents. And I am something you don't often hear in election coverage. It's something of a loss as to how you explain that independents would have gone so much more
I know
for
how
Trump
Brian
this time
Kemp
than they
purged the
did
voter
for Biden
rolls of
last
anyone
time.
who
Audie,
thought
hang
might
on.
vote
We're going to
for
go over to Jake
Democrats.
for a projection.
That's part of it. Not the whole thing, but it's
And
part.
we can bring you another CNN projection. CNN projects that Indiana
No, they already called Indiana
will go
for
to
Trump.
Donald Trump. Indiana, with its
Duh.
11 electoral votes, will go to Donald Trump. Let's look at the electoral map now to see where the candidates stack up. Remember, 270 needed to win. Donald Trump has 19 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 3 electoral votes. They both still have a lot of electoral votes to get up to 270. Let's do a key race alert for you now. In Florida, Donald Trump is in the lead with 51.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47.7% of the vote. Donald Trump has a 138,912 vote lead. I'm sorry, that just went up, a 224,914 vote lead. The votes are coming in as I do this. That's with more than a third, 35% of the estimated vote in from Florida.
Yeah,
with
at this
its big,
point,
fat
Florida
packet of
is
30
like a
electoral
full
votes.
red
The Commonwealth
state.
of Virginia, slightly more competitive. Donald Trump in the lead right now with 58.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 40.6% of the vote. That's only with a handful of votes in as of right now, about 1,500 votes. As we stand by for results from the crucial state of Georgia, we are counting down to the end of voting in the battleground state of North Carolina. This historic election night is just getting started.
Yeah, that's
Stay
what
with
I
us.
want to see. I want to see the North Carolina results, bro.
Election night in America and the magic wall.
Okay. Oh, man. This is... Bro, that's amazing. That is so amazing. Hold on, I got to show you guys this. This tweet. This is hilarious. I just jumped on X to see like what people were saying. Look at this amazing tweet. So Brianna Wu, who's a total hack and basically just became like a Zionist shill working on behalf of the Israeli lobby once this happened, used to be progressive. She wrote, as the polls close, I'm really only interested in one number. Just how badly has the Democratic Party lost the Jewish vote by refusing to denounce the anti-Semitism that has infested our party? Ariel Shatil wrote, they will probably lose much more for aiding and abetting the genocide that we in Israel are carrying out. Okay, so this guy's in the Israeli regime. She wrote, it's not a genocide, it's just war. And then he wrote, I'm a former soldier and reservist in the IDF. No, it isn't. Oh, bodied. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I want to send this guy a fruit basket. I wish I could go to her page to comment on it, but she blocked me. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing and hilarious. He's like, actually, bitch, it was in the IOF, and yeah, it's a genocide. And also, it is such an American thing to be like, actually. That's amazing. Yeah, Brianna Wu is garbage. And yeah, she blocked me a while ago, unblocked me, and then blocked me again, Lamau. So I couldn't go there to comment on it, but that is hilarious. That is hilarious. This guy's like, actually, I used to work for I was a reservist in the IOF, and yes, it's a genocide, and yes, I'm actually in the Israeli regime. Owned, epic own. Oh my gosh. Well, at least we got some fun news. At least we got something fun. That's amazing. That's truly amazing. I'm saving this tweet. I'm like, I needed something to make me laugh. Some like good news today. This is gold. Like, I want to send this guy a fruit basket. Oh my gosh. It's so amazing. Oh my gosh. That's so hilarious. It's so amazing. Oh my gosh. Absolutely bodied. Bodied. Okay, let's go back to CNN.
Electoral votes so far. Donald Trump has 19 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 3 electoral votes, 270 electoral votes needed to win. And now we have a key race alert. In the state of Georgia, Donald Trump is in the lead with 51% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 4,556 vote lead. That's with only an estimated 3% of the vote in. The polls just closed at 7. In the state of Florida, Donald Trump in the lead, his new home state, 53.2% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 45.9% of the vote. Donald Trump with a healthy 438,912 vote lead. That's what.
Shut up, Tapper Jake. I'm muting it to say thank you so much to Clarence. Cheryl, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. I appreciate every single one of you who donate and give super chats or donate to my Venmo or Ko-Fi or however you donate. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. WSW, what's that? Wall Street? Are you talking about the Wall Street Journal? Had an article about the Harris rally at the university where Finkelstein was fired. Disrespect. What was it saying? Was it like a positive article or a negative article?
Democrats than in some past elections.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is in a heated battle right now with Donald Trump in North Carolina after he won that state in both of his previous presidential campaigns, narrowly last time. Abby Phillip has some new information from Harris campaign headquarters at Howard University. Abby, tell us more.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, as you noted, Donald Trump won North Carolina the last time around, but by the slimmest margin of the states that he did win. So the Harris campaign, they are looking at that state as very much in play. What I've heard from the campaign tonight is that
World
they are
Socialist
seeing in
website,
some rural
duh.
counties lower
Boing.
than expected votes. Those counties are expected to go for Donald Trump. So they see that as
I'm
a
assuming it was
positive
negative
sign.
then.
And then on the other hand, when they look at where their voters might be, it's in places like the Raleigh-Durham area where you're going to have a larger proportion of those voters educated, a lot of people moving into the state,
Yes, but
into
we
those
still, guys, we
communities.
still could be
You're
dealing
going
with
to
the
have more
Trump
diversity in
mirage.
those communities. And I'm told that
Okay.
the Durham turnout today.
I don't know if you guys watched my video from last night, but we gotta remember the Trump mirage, the red mirage, that a lot of Republicans vote day of and a lot of Democrats vote by mail. So it's going in a lot of this, it's going to look like Trump is winning it first before the mail-in ballots come in. Like, we remember this from 2020. And then he lied and said he won, but he knew he hadn't won. And Steve Bannon was like, yeah, just say you won. Fuck it. Like, just lie and say you won, you know? So keep that in mind. Like, we knew Trump was going to win Florida. Like, that was a given. Florida is a fully red state now.
Of course, once he dropped out, it seemed like it was more in play. One thing that I'm told aides are keeping an eye on tonight is whether or not the governor's race has an effect on what the ultimate numbers there look like in the presidential race.
Also, Mohi,
Obviously,
I'm
the
not
Lieutenant
saying that
Governor
it's
Mark
not
Robinson,
possible
who is
that
the
Trump wins. It's
Republican
very
gubernatorial
possible that he
candidate, has
wins.
faced scandal after
All I'm
CNN
saying
reported on his
is,
past
like, hang
comments.
tight
That is something
because
they will be watching closely tonight.
we don't know for sure if he's going to win because it's still pretty early. And we know that, like, all the Republican votes usually come in first. So I'm not saying he won't win. You know, he could. But what I'm saying is just don't, like, think that just because we're seeing the results we're seeing now means that that's going to tell us who's going to win. What's going to tell us who's going to win is once the results from the swing states start coming in. Then we'll know. In North Carolina will be a good start. North Carolina is going to give us a start.
Be driving voters in the Tar Heel state.
Yeah, Jake, let me just explain to you that first we're going to look at how people feel about way things are going in the U.S., in North Carolina, what North Carolina voters are saying. 6% enthusiastic, 21% satisfied. The plurality, 43% of North Carolina voters tell us they are dissatisfied with the way things are going in the U.S., 27% angry. I just want to say those bottom two, 7 in 10 voters that are
So
dissatisfied or
Trump's
angry.
going to win North
Obviously,
Carolina?
the Trump
Like,
campaign, you
what?
think there's a lot of opportunity there for you. But the Harris campaign sees opportunity there too.
You
They
guys,
wanna
North
get at least
Carolina's the
chunks of
place
those
where the black
dissatisfied and angry
Nazi
voters
is running.
who are dissatisfied and angry with
And I
Trump's
mean that
dominance of our
literally. I'm
politics.
not
So that'll
saying
be
that like
something to watch
pejoratively.
later in the
The
evening.
black
We
lieutenant
also are looking
governor
here at the most
who's running there
important issue.
actually
Economy
referred to
actually
himself that way.
ranks top, not like it is nationally, but like we saw in Georgia, though a tick down from that. 36% say the economy is the most important issue in North Carolina. Democracy is right up there, Jake, at 32%. Well down then is abortion and immigration in the teens. We also asked about hurricane aid here. Is federal hurricane aid getting to the people who need it? You see it's roughly split here, but 49% say yes, federal hurricane aid getting to where it needs
Thanks,
to go.
Marcella, for
46%
joining.
say
We'll
no.
see you
And
later.
then Joe Biden's approval rating, it's 1 point higher here in North Carolina than it is in Georgia or nationally. 42% approve, 56% disapprove. Again, the Harris campaign would like to make sure they get some of those Biden disapprovers into their fold. But that kind of approval on Biden is what is giving the Trump campaign hope in a place like North Carolina. Jake?
Interesting. All right, David Chalian, thanks so much. And let's talk about this. And Dana, I mean, again, some headwinds for Kamala Harris here in these exit polls. First of all, 70% of North Carolinians of Tar Heels are either dissatisfied or angry with the state of things. The economy is the number one issue. That's terrain that where Trump traditionally polls better. And then a bad job approval rating for Joe Biden, her boss.
Yeah, it
Yikes.
is true about the 70 or 71% of people who are dissatisfied and angry. But I think, unlike what Chris said before, saying that means that it's a very good sign for Donald Trump. I think that what you are maybe not calculating, and what David with Anderson are not calculating, is that there are a lot of women and men who are dissatisfied with the fact that women don't have the ability to control their reproductive rights in America.
No, look, it's baked in. I mean, the right track, wrong track.
What do you mean
was
it's
known for some
baked
period
in?
of time, and the fact is, the race, despite the fact that people are very.
I love how
unhappy for
everyone
whatever
calls
reason with the
CNN
way
a
the
liberal
country is
network when
going,
all of them are
is
Republicans.
still
But it's even funnier that they call
supposedly as tight as
MSNBC a
can
liberal
be. So
network when all of
Kamala
their
Harris is
staff
clearly
are
going to
former
be able to
Republicans.
overcome that. Incidentally, may I just, in the last segment, I said, I don't know why the independents are so heavily for Trump in Georgia. Fortunately, we have a very smart Republican pollster listening, and who wrote to me and said, it's the same problem that democracies, incumbents and democracies around the country are facing right now, around the world rather. Inflation, they don't like the way things are going. They want somebody to fix it. And that's Donald Trump's basic pitch at the end, which is it's broken, I'm going to fix it.
I don't want to drop the ball on what Dana said, though, about what people mean when they are dissatisfied. It's the same thing about what they mean by democracy or being independent. It's not entirely clear until we're closer to the final tallies.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
But the
true.
battleground states are Aaron Burnett's beats tonight.
Because
Aaron?
people will call themselves
They
independent
are,
when
and of
they're
course, we're just
full
moments
ass
away
right wingers.
from polls closing in a lot of these states in these final crucial minutes, really, in North Carolina, crucial minutes. Brianna, where you are in Charlotte, the people still have to vote, and we're starting to see some of these exit polls, concerns about the economy, the dissatisfaction that people have. What have voters been telling you?
Do you guys hear my dog crying?
They've
He
been
wants to come
telling
up on
us,
the bed.
Aaron, that everything matters. We're here in Mecklenburg County, which is going to be closely watched. It voted 66% for Joe Biden in 2020, and this is going to be very important to see the result here, to see how Harris performs compared to how Joe Biden did in 2020. I'm joined now by a voter, Brian Flores. You just voted.
I did.
And who did you vote for?
For Harris.
And tell me about how you came to this decision.
So I wasn't going to vote at all until my girlfriend was blowing up my phone telling me to go vote. And if I didn't, she was going to break up with me. So now I'm here.
Lol.
Was she seriously going to break up with you?
No, I made that up. She didn't say that, but it's funny to say that.
So she asked you to vote for Harris.
She did.
West Virginia called
you
it
voted for
red,
Biden
of
in
course.
2020, but
It's a
what
red
were you going
state.
to do this time?
I wasn't going to vote at all.
You were just going to stay home.
I was going to stay home, eat some chips or something. I don't know.
And so you came just before polls closed. But here's the thing. How long did it most people have been saying it's taken them 5 or 10 minutes. Tell us how long it took you to vote.
So I got off of work at 4:30. Drove here about 30 minutes. I think I walked in like at 5:05-ish. And I was waiting for about 2 hours. I just walked out.
Brian, 2 hours to fix your address, right?
2 hours.
Brian Flores, thank you so much. Aaron, back to you.
That's crazy.
Well, that's devotion. That's devotion. 2 hours to fix the address and to stay there and to vote.
Indeed.
I mean, all right, John, but those are the stories the Harris campaign wants.
You know what?
More stories like that.
That's a vote today that was not going to be there yesterday or the day before.
That is right.
Which in a competitive race, it starts with one, and that's how you build, right? So what do we have so far as we look at the map? Let's come out to the big picture first and show you. Sorry, I was just peeking in there. It's early. That's the big headline here. Look at a lot of that gray as we go from east to west. We have a lot to count still tonight. But we have some interesting things happening. Let's start in battleground Georgia, the one battleground state where we do have some results right now. And you have a very narrow lead for Donald Trump, or that's, I guess, better than that.
That's not that narrow, bro.
4,000 votes now.
That's
I say narrow.
solid.
Like that's what happens on live television. You see that right there. But this is very, very early in the race. We have 7% estimated reporting. So you're looking at the map. You see the red filling in the small rural counties. That is the bedrock of the Donald Trump movement. He wins big in rural America. The challenge for Harris is to run it up here. We have nothing from Fulton County. Saw Victor Blackwell earlier tonight in Gwinnett County. Very early on. You have a little more 1,000, 1,100 votes there if you add that up. So we have a long way to go. Just for comparison purposes, Joe Biden gets 58. So can the vice president keep it there at 59 as we move through the night? Again, that's an incredible early rationale there, but that's what you're looking at, right? Are you at least
You're
matching
gonna roast
the
who on
coalition
Twitter?
of the last guy to win the state? And that would be Joe Biden 4 years ago. And if you're not, if you're losing in some areas, can you make it up somewhere else? So that's where we look at Georgia right now.
Who theater?
All
Who
that
are
tells us
they
we have a very
roasting on
competitive
Twitter?
race. Virginia used to be a battleground state. It's reliably blue now, but it will give us some pretty important clues tonight. It will, because if you look through right here, only 2% of the vote in. Again, you see, 45,000 to 43,000. This is a state that's going to be around 4 million votes, maybe even higher than that.
Cool
by the end of the
story.
night. So
Tell
this
us
is
what's
very,
happening
very
in
early on.
Georgia.
2% of the vote. But you look at the map and you say, are there any surprises here? This would be a surprise. Prince William County in the suburbs. You see, D.C. is right here. Very blue suburbs here. Fairfax County, go back 20 years, Republican leaning. Now you come out here to Prince William County. Again, it's only 5% of the vote. Trump up by 6 points there. Just go back and take a peek. This was blue, and it was decidedly blue. So it's very early. That vote total could be one precinct, could be one Republican area. Just a thing we keep an eye on. You mark it early
The
on.
election
Right now,
interference
that's
on
where Biden
Twitter
did
on
very
behalf
well.
of Trump
At
is
the moment,
wild.
if Trump can improve in the suburbs and the exurbs, that's his path back to the White House. It's early on, but that's the thing you look at as this plays in. What else are we looking for here? This is Chesterfield County. Richmond, Virginia is the capital. Suburbs beneath it to the south, suburbs around it to the north. Only 6% of the vote in. Harris getting 51%. Again, your test is match it up to Biden. He had 52. She wants to stay where his number is. You say, oh, it's a point or so. A point or so can matter. Maybe not in Virginia. She may still win the state. But if she's underperforming Biden in the
I like all
suburbs,
the
that would be the warning
Republicans
sign. This is way
retweeting
too
the
early.
exit polls
Way
from
too early to say
CNN
that's the case. I pointed
that
out
are
just so these are the
positive for
markers we're gonna
Trump
go through as we go through
because
the night. As we
they're
look it out. When it
so
comes to
they're such
Virginia, here's my
hacked
test
in
here.
their
Again, this is 2%. Those numbers,
the way that
forget
they
about them.
only
It's gonna be a
will
long way to
like
go there.
they're happy
Here's the
to
number you wanna
cite
look at. This was a
CNN
10-point
polls
race.
and liberal
10-point
media if they
race
think it's
4 years
going
ago,
their
right?
way.
It was
They'll
not a
be
10-point
like,
race in 2016,
CNN is fake news,
right? It's
mainstream
still
media,
blue
New
in
York
both
Times is
cases.
fake
That's
news.
Obama.
But if
Sorry,
they
I
have a
went back to
poll that
Obama
like
there.
goes in their favor, they're
10.16.
like, look, CNN said, look,
Talk
New
here,
York
here we
Times
go.
said, like you guys
That's
are
not gonna
such
work out. Here we
hacks.
go. It was a 6-point race there.
Bye,
That's
Eori. Don't forget, you
might
guys
still
who have
stay
to
blue.
leave
The
now,
question
that you
is
can join
Donald
me on
Trump
Twitter later
tighter in
if
the
you want
blue
to keep
states?
up
'Cause
with
that
the
means he'll
live
be better in the
tweeting of
battleground
what's
states,
happening
okay?
later
That's
in
what you
the
watch. Counties come in,
election
you take a
stream.
look, you try to learn some lessons. All right, and we're coming up on another critical round of poll closings in the
Mohi, thank you so much for the
presidential race
super
just moments from
sticker
now.
of
That's when voting ends in the
350.
battleground state of
What is
North
that?
Carolina, as well as
What
in
is that
Ohio and West Virginia.
currency?
A
Is
total
that
of
a
37
shekel?
electoral votes are up for grabs right now. And CNN can make a projection that Donald Trump will win the state of West Virginia. West Virginia and its 4 electoral votes going to Donald Trump. Too early to call. Too early to make a projection in battleground North Carolina.
Ohio's going to go to Trump. It's a red state. West Virginia is a red state. What we want to pay attention to, guys, is North Carolina and Georgia right now.
Now that we've called a state for Donald Trump has 23 electoral votes in the lead of Kamala Harris, who has 3 electoral votes. 270.
Thank you, Mohi. I appreciate it.
Both are
Oh, bummer that you don't
on
have
that. Let's
Twitter.
bring you a key race alert now in the battleground state of Georgia.
Donald Trump in the lead with 58.1% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 41.4% of the vote. Donald Trump, 69,586 votes ahead. That's with only an estimated 8% of the vote.
That's not
in the state
good.
of Georgia. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Donald Trump in the lead there with 49.6% of the vote. Kamala Harris has
Yeah, it's only 2% in, though.
48% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 948 vote lead. Only 2% of the vote has come in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have two more states to show you now. Florida, Donald Trump in the lead there with 53.5% of the
behind?
vote. Kamala Harris with 45.
112 votes. Harris is in the lead. By the time we're done, you're going to be in the 200,000s, right? So we have a very, very, very long way to go. Trump at 40% there.
Jake, a major projection to bring you. In their quest to take control of the U.S. Senate, Republicans have their first expected pickup.
This is not a surprise. We knew that West Virginia was going to go red, like down the ballot.
The Republican in this race is projected to defeat the mayor of Wheeling, West Virginia, Glenn Elliott. Justice, a former Democrat, now expected to take control of the
Thank you, HM, for the super chat. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. Yes. Thank you for being a voice of humanity and truth against genocide and corporatocracy. Voted Claudia De La Cruz. Good for you. So did I. I did too. And thank you so much for the super chat. And thank you for the kind words.
English bulldog everywhere with him. It appears that Baby Dog and Justice are now headed to the U.S. Senate.
It's amazing that West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country with the worst education system and worst healthcare system, and they keep voting for Republicans.
Now
Like, it's
that number
amazing.
is down to one, and they are currently leading in one race where Democrats hold a seat. Let's get you some key race alerts now and show you exactly where that is on the map. We start with Ohio. Still very early there, but Colombian-born businessman Bernie Moreno is leading Democratic incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown, seeking his fourth term, only by about 16,000 votes. Still very early, though, 3% of the vote in the state of Ohio. If you're a Democrat and you're looking at the map, you're looking for opportunities to pick up a Republican seat. One of their best opportunities in the Sunshine State of Florida. Rick Scott got elected by winning.
Well, Clarence, I watch these things so you don't have to, and I'll be doing recaps. The reason why they don't show you on CNN or any of the major networks what's happening with the down ballot races as far as like Green Party or independent candidates is because they have an interest in preserving the status quo of Republicans and Democrats and our corporatocracy, plutocracy, oligarchy. So they're not going to talk about the third party, but I am going to stay on it. I'm going to stay on it. So once I know,
all right, Boris,
I will
thanks
be
so
making
much.
videos
Bring you a CNN
and
key
putting
race
them on
alert
YouTube
right
and
now.
TikTok. I
In
will also
North
be
Carolina,
live
Kamala
tweeting through
Harris
all
is
of
in the
this
lead
on
with
Twitter.
68%
Follow
of the
me on
vote.
Twitter
Donald
if you
Trump
don't already.
has 30.8%
And I
of the
will
vote.
keep you
Kamala
guys
Harris, as of
updated.
this hour,
Those
has
of
a
you who want to know the results of the third party,
41,599 vote lead. That's with only
for
an
those of you who want to be
estimated 2%
kept
of the
up
vote
on the
in
third party,
from
I
the
will
big
be
battleground of
updating
North
you guys.
Carolina with its 16 electoral votes. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead.
I wrote her
with
in, Tristan.
60.6%
Claudia
of the
De
vote.
La Cruz.
Kamala
They didn't
Harris
because
has
Claudia De La Cruz
38.9%
and
of the vote.
Jill Stein
Donald
were not
Trump,
on my
as of this
ballot
hour,
in
with
New
a
York, so I wrote her in.
109,841 vote lead. That's with an estimated 9% of the vote in from that key battleground state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Kamala Harris has 59.7% of the vote.
Yeah, but it's
Donald
still
Trump,
really early.
38.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 105,065 vote lead. That's with an estimated 11% of the vote in from the Commonwealth of Virginia with its 13 electoral votes. We expect more votes to come in from key battlegrounds at any time, and we're going to soon get the first results from a third high-stakes presidential battleground, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Voting ends in the Commonwealth just a few minutes from now. We're going to talk
Tristan,
to you on
you're
the
in
other side of the break.
Pennsylvania?
Stay with us.
Okay. Interesting. Let's see what they're saying. Yeah, it is. It's very early. These could flip. Like right now, Trump is leading by a lot in Georgia, but it's still pretty early, so it could flip. I'm curious. Bro. Quit with your commercials. Ain't nobody want to see your commercials. Great, I should have stayed on CNN.
Is the organizing. There's been some organizing, it seems like, with some of the fraternities and these red hats, the MAGA hats, they stand out. And
I'm going to be right back.
and
I got to
right
pee.
here. And then you've got this battle of these stickers. You've got Harris Wall's campaign people going around giving stickers. And it seems like back in the day, you'd go to a poll site and you wouldn't necessarily see or know who somebody was voting for before they went into the polls. We were at another polling site in Mesa, Arizona. Those hats are so prevalent here in Arizona. So we've been seeing a lot more of this kind of tribalism at the polls, heading into the polls. Whether it's any indication as to how things go in Arizona, it is too soon to tell. And Arizona, again, it could be a very tight race here. And if it is a tight race, it's possibly going to be days before we have a final decision. Rachel?
That's all right. We got days, we got weeks, we got as long as it takes. We are tireless, Gotti, just like you. NBC's Gotti Schwartz, thank you so much. Gotti, with students there at ASU at Arizona State University in Tempe. Let me give you a little bit of an update. We were talking about some threats that were received at polling places in Georgia. We've got a little more detail on that out of DeKalb County, Georgia, which is east of Atlanta. It's a very Democratic, very deep blue county. Officials there that NBC News has spoken to say they have received bomb threats at 7 locations in the last hour, including 5 voting precincts. Police evacuated the polling sites. Polling sites include churches and community centers in Chamblee and Tucker and Decatur and Lithonia, Georgia. Some of these locations appear to include Black churches. So again, we have heard about false threats being phoned in to Georgia voting locations. If you are in a place that has had its, whether it's Georgia or anywhere else, if you are in a place that has had its voting hours extended or indeed voting poll closings have not yet arrived in your state, if you are in line, you will be allowed to vote.
All right, let's go back.
To 270 electoral votes stands.
Oh, thank you
right
so much,
now.
B.
Donald Trump
Share.
has 23 electoral
Thank you
votes.
for the
Kamala
super
Harris has
sticker.
3
Thank you
electoral
so
votes,
much.
both
I
of them
appreciate
far
you.
from 270 needed to win. But we have some new results to share. So here's a key race alert. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead with 62.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 36.8% of the vote. Donald Trump with a healthy 166,655 vote lead.
Yikes.
That's 13% of the estimated vote in. Still a lot of votes to be counted in Georgia. In battleground North Carolina, Kamala Harris has 67.5% of the vote. Donald Trump has 31.4% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 40,929 votes ahead of Donald Trump, but it's still very early. 2% of the estimated vote is
2%, that's
still a lot of
nothing.
votes to
Guys,
count
come
in
on,
North
calm
Carolina.
down.
In the
Everybody calm
Commonwealth
down.
of Virginia, Kamala Harris has 58.2% of the vote. Donald Trump has 40.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 121,029 vote lead. It's still very early, only 15% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. In Florida, Donald Trump in the lead, 54.3%.
Yeah, it's not even going to be
Kamala
cool in
Harris
Florida.
has 40%. Donald Trump with a healthy 822,987 vote lead. That's with an estimated 71%.
Why are there
of
so
the
many bomb
estimated
threats
vote
in the voting areas?
from
Because we
Florida.
live
in Ohio
in a country with a lot of right-wing fascists
of the vote. Kamala Harris with 42.5%
who want to use violence to
Donald
get
Trump
what
has
they
a
want.
31,716 vote lead. It's still very early in Ohio. Only 4% of the estimated vote in. In New Hampshire, Kamala Harris in the lead, 58.7% of the vote. Donald Trump has 40.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris has a 10,020 vote lead. Still very early.
Yeah, it's only
in New
7%
Hampshire,
in,
only
though.
7% of the estimated vote in the Granite State. We're only minutes away from the biggest wave of poll closings in this entire presidential race. We are counting down to the top of the hour. That's 8 p.m. Eastern, when a total of 171 electoral votes are on the line. That's a huge chunk of the 270 needed to win. Voting is about to end in Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Florida, Illinois, Maine.
They're making it seem like a bigger
Maryland,
deal than it is, though, because everything they
Massachusetts,
just named, we know
Mississippi,
exactly
Missouri,
how
New
those states are going to go.
New Jersey, Oklahoma, the key Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee.
Yeah, the only
All
state.
eyes are on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
Yeah.
in this hour ahead. It is one of the make or break battlegrounds up for grabs tonight. And the polling there has been 48-48 or 50-50.
All of those
Kamala
states,
Harris is hoping to pull
we
off win in
know who's going to win
Pennsylvania,
those states,
as
except for
President Biden did
Pennsylvania.
4
That is
years
the
ago.
only one that you should
Donald
be
Trump
looking
aiming
out
a
for,
repeat
is
of his
Pennsylvania.
2016 victory there. Let's check back with our campaign correspondents. First, Abby Phillip, anchoring at Harris headquarters in Howard University here in D.C. Abby, what is the latest from Harris campaign headquarters when it comes to watching the returns come in from Georgia and North Carolina?
Jake, right now, my colleague Jeff Zeleny has some new reporting about what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania. Jeff, what are you learning?
Well, Abby, there's no doubt that the Harris campaign is watching Pennsylvania closer than any other state. They are looking to Philadelphia in particular, what they believe is higher turnout than the 2020 levels for Joe Biden. They're looking at a couple key precincts in Philadelphia. But if that were to be the case, if the vice
Get to
president
the point,
is
bro.
to have a strong performance in Pennsylvania, she must do well in Philadelphia. Abby, as you well know, she closed out her campaign last night in Philadelphia with that big rally on the Rocky Steps. That's where the marathon ends. It's called the finish line. The big question for her campaign, if she reaches the finish line in the presidential race, can she have big enough margins in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh to carry the state? The Harris campaign is a little worried about North Carolina and Georgia. They've always said the most straightforward path is the blue wall, but all eyes are on Philadelphia right now. That's why, as we speak, they're trying to get the rest of the voters out to the polls.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes left. Jeff, thank you for that. Back to you, Jake.
Thanks, Abby. And let's go to Caitlin Collins at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach. Caitlin?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. We're here at the convention center where Donald Trump is hosting his election night party. I'm with CNN's Kristen Holmes. And Philadelphia and Pennsylvania overall, obviously, has been a key focus for them. But after Donald Trump and the Puerto Rican remark fallout from his rally at Madison Square Garden, they were particularly worried because there are Puerto Rican strongholds in Pennsylvania.
There's more than 400,000 Puerto Rican voters in
I was
Pennsylvania.
wondering
He
about
actually went
that
to
showing
Allentown. There wasn't
third-party
huge
two
protests, but they
things,
were
how
very
do they
concerned.
do?
Now, a lot of their concern focuses around some internal drama, which was that essentially after that comedian took the stage and made that joke, there was a lot of finger pointing as to who was to blame, who brought him on stage, who did not vet him. Now, internally, I am
Oh, give me a break. They loved it. All the fake pearl clutching.
who was asked at multiple times, did this hurt my campaign? Is this going to hurt me with Puerto
So
Rican
he's
voters?
worried about it.
He was worried about it. He was worried. He was watching the news, as he often does, and seeing the reports that Puerto Ricans were saying that they were offended by it, that they weren't going to vote for him. And of course, this is particularly important in Pennsylvania, given the fact that there are so many Puerto Rican voters. And one thing, Caitlin, it's not just Pennsylvania. Across all of these swing states, there are large swaths of Puerto Rican voters. So whether it's not self-preservation because these people want to show that they didn't impact the Puerto Rican vote, or it's because they actually think it could impact him in the long term, they're watching those numbers very carefully.
Yeah, and when the margins matter, something like that certainly can. Kristen Holmes, thank you for that. Jake, obviously something that
I mean, that's
campaign is
obvious,
watching
but-
very closely from down here in South Florida behind the scenes.
All right, Caitlin, thanks so much. Let's go to David Chalian now, who has some new exit polling. David, what are you learning about voters in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, democracy is the #1 issue for voters. Take a look. 33% of Pennsylvania voters say democracy is the most important issue. The economy is right up there, Jake, with 30%. Then abortion at 15, immigration at 12. Speaking
So
of
I guess all
abortion,
the
we asked,
immigration
do you
fear
think it
mongering
should
didn't
be
work
mostly
after all.
legal, or illegal? 64% of Pennsylvania voters, nearly 2/3, say it should be legal. 30% say illegal. We also asked for a view on fracking in Pennsylvania. We want to understand why Kamala Harris changed her position on this. 55% favor fracking, according to the exit polls in Pennsylvania. 36% oppose it. And Biden's handling of his job, a tick higher than we saw nationally. 43% of Pennsylvania voters in this election tell us they approve of Biden's job performance. 56% disapprove, Jake.
All right, David Chalian, thanks so much. And Chris, at least just based on this exit poll, a slightly better terrain in Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris, with democracy as the #1 issue, 33% as opposed to economy at 30%, a strong majority
They're all
supporting
shills.
legal abortion, and Joe Biden's
Tapper
first
Jake.
rating is bad, but not as bad.
I think it's
Dana
night and day.
Bash,
I mean,
all
as
of them.
compared
They're
to
all
Georgia and
shills
North
for the
Carolina.
Israeli regime.
48% of people in Pennsylvania said either
Clarence, it's a good
abortion
point.
or
People do need
democracy
to
was the
stop
most
saying
important
that.
issue. Seems like a very different climate than
One of the
North
reasons why
Carolina and
people
Georgia.
think
And
that
that's
third
the point.
parties don't
She
have
doesn't
any
have to win all
viability
of the
is
states that
because
Joe
A,
Biden
they're
won.
not on
She
the
just
ballot in
needs
all
to win
50
enough to
states,
get
which
to
we could
270
change.
and the blue wall
And
and the
because,
blue
like you
dot
said,
and
you know, you say
Nebraska
something
is
enough,
enough.
people believe
Yeah,
it.
I mean, if you look at Pennsylvania, these numbers would, if you ostensibly be pretty good for Kamala Harris if democracy is the top issue, but the economy is right underneath that.
Yeah.
And that, as we know, has been a big headwind for Kamala Harris. What we don't know yet, and what I'm really interested to see, is what Caitlin and Kristen were just reporting on, and that is whether or not that very large, not only Latino population, but the Puerto Rican population in places like Allentown and Reading, whether or not those are going to flip or maybe come out in a more robust way
Yeah.
after Madison Square
Because
Garden.
one of the thing about
I'm curious to see if that had any.
it draws attention to the campaign and not the way they want.
I'm
Kamala
curious
Harris
to
tried
see
to
if
take
that
advantage
had
of that.
any
She had
impact.
Fat Joe. She had Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaigning in Puerto Rican areas of Pennsylvania. It's not just about the mistake. It's about being able to draw attention to it and then use that as an opportunity to wake up maybe low propensity voters.
Yeah, Pennsylvania with the third biggest Puerto Rican population in the mainland, behind only Florida and New York. Back to Aaron Burnett following the action in the battleground states.
Right, of course, chief among them right now. You're talking about it, Pennsylvania.
What
So
is
let's,
happening?
go to Kate
Oh, that's a
Baldwin in
bummer,
Bensalem,
Sultan,
where you
'cause-
have been throughout the day, Kate. And now, we're seeing these exit polls. Polls are going to close. This could truly become, as so many thought it
That's a bummer that you missed it, because yeah, I'm wrapping the stream up around 8 o'clock, and then I'm gonna take it over to Twitter and I'm gonna live tweet like the rest of the results and stuff. I am gonna do a recap video though, and like talk about the third party voters and stuff.
When it posts its first votes at 8:01 p.m., they will be posting just over 110,000 ballots. These are mail ballots. This is the long-awaited first batch of mail ballots to be posted, and it represents, I'm told by this source, more than 50% of all mail ballots that they have received. This also, for context, puts Philadelphia well ahead of the pace, their counting pace from 2020, which we've all become so familiar with. But this is a big moment that we're learning first here on CNN. They'll be posting just over 110,000 ballots, and we'll see the results of that.
Israel's in the lead.
So crucial, Kate, as you say. Faster
Yeah,
than
for
we had seen
real.
last time, and the context that Kate just gave around that number, that would be more than 50% of the mail-in ballots from Philadelphia. It's a start, but it's a better start than we've seen before. Pamela Brown is at the voting desk. And Pamela, with the spotlight on Pennsylvania right now, what are you looking for in the context of those numbers that Kate just shared with us?
So you have the early votes that are about to be reported shortly after 8 o'clock, and then you have the overall turnout. And sources I'm speaking with there in Pennsylvania and on the ground in Philly say that turnout in Philadelphia and some other places across the Commonwealth have exceeded expectations. So let's talk about that Democratic stronghold of Philadelphia and what I'm being told there. An official there tells me at Temple University, the line was around the block today. I'm told they had to bring in extra machines to tabulate
I
the
didn't know
votes.
Virginia was so
6
blue. It
total
used to
compared
not
the
be.
2 that
Virginia
is
used to be a
typical for
swing
this
state.
official. The Philly official also tells me while they don't have an exact number for voter turnout today, they just don't have that data right now, that turnout has certainly exceeded expectations. 2 sources at the state and local level in Philly tell me ballots had to be replenished today in several polling places there in this Democratic stronghold. Overall, one state source speaking to election officials in Philly said it seems the turnout there was, quote, quite high and seems through the roof. Let's look at the swing county here of Northampton. The state official also tells me at Lehigh
Any
University,
likable
their
person on
lines were up
screen?
to
Me.
4 hours long. I'm told this is not because of any glitches in the system or issues, just that the turnout there was stronger than they had anticipated at this university where there are a lot more younger voters. Now, I'm told right now, as it stands across the Commonwealth, there are 600,000 fewer mail-in ballots compared to 2020, but officials aren't done counting the total number. And they tell me it's actually more mail-in ballots than they were expecting. So we're about to get our first big look at those mail-in ballot numbers right there in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania at 8 p.m. A lot coming our way this hour, Aaron.
That's right. Absolutely. As Kate said, more than 100,000 of
You
them.
have to watch the house
could be
where I
more
went
than
to room with my
50% of the
mom yelling at the
outstanding
TV
for
to
Philadelphia. John
Trump.
King, amazing though, when you hear about 4
Oh,
hours of lines,
man.
and we have heard that from
That's
Pennsylvania to
depressing.
Nevada, that young
That's
people
depressing,
have turned
Walton.
out.
Hopefully everyone's turning out. I just want to say quickly, seeing Kate Baldwin in that spot in Philadelphia, you want to trigger some Johnny.
Yeah, right.
2020
Florida
conspiracy
voting on
theories.
behalf
Yeah,
of
that
more
is the
hurricanes.
spot. I remember that spot too well from 2020. Let's look through what we have. Blank in Commonwealth, Pennsylvania right now. Again, this is the biggest of the battleground prizes. 19 electoral votes. Whoever wins this state has more options to get to 270.
Get to the
because
point.
It's 19. The next biggest one is 16. But so what are we looking for here, right? Kate was just right here in Philadelphia. It's the biggest basket of votes. If you're the Democrat, you need to run it up in Philadelphia. So she just said we'll get about 100,000 votes, right? So let's just go back in 2020, just as a reminder. Joe Biden wins Philadelphia with 81% of the vote and just over 600,000 in the count. So those first 100,000 will give us a clue, but it's a building block. We're going to have to wait to see what keeps coming after that, especially if those are early ballots. And we'll see, are the early ballots this year as disproportionately Democratic as they were in 2020? That's one of the things we'll see. But this is the building block for any Democratic victory in Pennsylvania. It has to be not only a high percentage, but you want a high turnout. You want to do some raw math there to run up your margin. Then we get into the suburbs around Philadelphia, the Collier counties, Bucks and Montgomery and Delaware. And then you start moving out to the...
All right. So hopefully when it turns 8 o'clock is when they're going to give us the first batch. So as I said, I'm going to be wrapping up around 8. I'll wait like a couple of minutes after 8 o'clock to see if they give us the Pennsylvania results. And then I'm going to log off and switch to Twitter to continue to live tweet it. And I'll make a video updating you guys about the third parties tomorrow. But yeah, so just wanted to do that. I'll probably let it run a little bit past 8 o'clock, just a few minutes so that I can see what they say about Pennsylvania. But I wanted to say thank you before to everybody who joined this live stream and to everybody who supports my work and donated super chats or donated to Ko-Fi or Venmo. Thank you guys so much. You're the reason why I can do what I do. And I appreciate you all. Please subscribe to my YouTube. That doesn't cost anything. You can just subscribe to, be a part of these lives and stuff. And yeah, my ticker, this ticker at the bottom of my screen shows my other socials that you can follow me at. And so I'll sign off after this, but let's see what they say about Pennsylvania in a second here. Yes, I like watching it with you guys too, because you guys actually care about more than just the horse race.
County, Indiana, which of course is a red state, already in his electoral map column. Let's just check in on the Commonwealth of Virginia, and then we'll move south. Again, if you're Harris, Joe Biden had a 10-point win here.
Yes,
right?
and hit the like button.
Recreate
Yes,
the 2020
please like
map.
the
You want the
live.
states to come out.
I always
roughly like they
forget
did
that.
then. Only at 22%, but right now she's in the ballpark for a 10-point win. We'll keep an eye on that. If you get that 10-point win
Thank
there,
you,
the question is,
Tristan.
can you carry it over? This has always been Democrats' frustration. How do we get Virginia, but we can't get North Carolina? Demographically, they're very similar. You could even say there are some more advantages for Democrats in the research triangle. Younger voters, more black voters. Right now, the vice president has a lead, but again, we are very early on in the state of North Carolina, 59%. Just want to go back.
Yeah,
and
but
look for
North
some
Carolina's
comparisons.
gerrymandered
126,000
like
votes, she
none
has the lead.
other.
Why do we know we're going to be out this
They
a while?
always never mention
It's going to
that.
take
Like
about
North
2.7,
Carolina
2.8
would be a
million
blue
to
state
win the
if not
state. So
for
we have a
all the
long way to go
gerrymandering.
here. Let's just take
Same
one
with
more look at
Wisconsin.
battleground Georgia before we get to the top of the hour, and we're going to start to see votes coming in. It's time to do some serious math at the top of the hour. Donald Trump leading at the moment, 182,000 votes ahead, but only about a third of the vote counted, and not much in yet from the Atlanta suburban area. But Jake, in the hour ahead, a lot of votes.
Indeed. Voting is about to end in 16 states and the District of Columbia.
My prediction as of right now, I think that Kamala Harris is going to win narrowly.
171 electoral votes at stake, including 19 in
The overall
Pennsylvania, the
election.
battleground that could decide the presidential election. And let's bring you some CNN projections. CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the state of Florida with its 30 electoral votes, as expected. Donald Trump, CNN projects, will win the state of Tennessee, as expected, with its 11 electoral votes. Missouri will go to Donald Trump. Missouri, as expected, will give Donald Trump, 10 electoral votes. Here are 2 more projections for Trump.
Yeah, none of,
Alabama,
for those of
CNN
you
projects,
watching
will go to Donald
out of the
Trump with its
country,
9
none of this
electoral
is a
votes.
surprise.
And
All of these
Oklahoma,
were going to go to
CNN
Trump.
projects, will go to Donald Trump with its 7 electoral votes. We have some projections for Kamala Harris as well.
Same
CNN
here.
projects that the
District of
Commonwealth
Columbia,
of Massachusetts, with its 11
Massachusetts.
electoral votes, as expected, will go to Kamala Harris. CNN can project that Maryland, as expected, with its 10 electoral votes, will go to Kamala Harris. And CNN can project that the District of Columbia, with
Yeah,
its 3
everyone knew
electoral
that.
votes,
This
can
is not
go to
thing.
Kamala Harris. Here are the states that where the polls just closed, where we are not prepared to make a projection. They include Connecticut, Delaware,
Connecticut will go to
Illinois,
Harris. Delaware will go to
Maine,
Harris. Illinois will go to
Mississippi,
Harris.
New Hampshire, New Jersey, Pennsylvania,
New Jersey will go to Harris.
and Rhode
Rhode
Island.
Island
No
will go to
projection
Harris.
in any of those states. Here is the electoral vote count at this hour. Donald Trump has 90 electoral votes.
See, and
Kamala
because
Harris has
Donald Trump and
27
Republicans are
electoral
idiots,
votes. 200.
they'll think that this means that he should win because, like, he's ahead right now when it's like super early. They're like, "Oh, see, he won."
Big battlegrounds, North Carolina. Kamala Harris is in the lead there. with
Yes, but it's only at 5%,
51.8% of the vote. Donald
guys.
Trump has 47.2% of the vote. Kamala Harris with an 11,000 plus vote lead. That's with only 5% of the estimated vote count. It's still a lot of votes. to
Walton,
count
I hear
in
you.
North
I don't
Carolina. In
envy
battleground
anybody's
Georgia,
position that's in a
Donald
swing
Trump in
state.
the lead with 54.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 44.6% of the vote. That's with a third of the vote in Georgia. That's 33% of the estimated vote. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Kamala Harris in the lead with 54.2% of the vote. Donald Trump has 43.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a healthy 115,000 plus vote lead. That's with a quarter of the
It's
vote.
crazy
counted
how
in the
far he's
Commonwealth of
leading
Virginia,
in
25%.
Georgia.
In New Hampshire, Kamala Harris
Thank you,
has
Linda.
55.7%
Have a
of
good
the
election
vote.
night. Thank you
Donald
so
Trump
much,
has
Linda.
43.7%
I
of the
appreciate
vote.
you. Thank you
Kamala
for the
Harris
super
with
chat.
a 9,000.
Yes, join me on X after this, you guys.
That's with only a tenth, 10% of the estimated vote counted in the state of New Hampshire. In Ohio, Kamala Harris in the lead there, 54.5%.
100%, you guys.
Donald Trump has 44.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris.
I'm going to wrap this up and I'm going to go on X, okay? I got to finish cooking dinner too first. But here's the thing that I want you guys to keep in mind, okay? They're not going to talk about the third party vote. Donald Trump will declare himself the winner regardless of whether or not he loses. But understand that we may not know who the winner is tonight. We might have to wait. We might not know. But Donald Trump is going to claim that he won anyway. So just know that. And they're not going to talk about the third party voter really vote at all because it doesn't serve their corporate interests. So yeah, I'm going to head over to Twitter in a few minutes once I finish cooking, and I will see you guys there. I will be live tweeting it. So follow me on Twitter if you don't already. Follow me on all the socials. Thank you again so much to everybody who gave super chats and who donated. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Free Palestine. Unfortunately, we know that whoever wins the election, the real winner is Netanyahu and the Israeli regime. But you know what? Here's what we know. Regardless of what happens tonight, the work continues. Regardless of what happens tonight, the work continues. All right, everybody. I love you, and I will see you this week, later this week. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me. I love you all. Thank you again, Clarence, for the super chat. Thank you so much. I love you.